Chapter 1464. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways and saw the pale-faced kitty, Li, who was lying on Chi-Chi's body, blinking her eyes as she said softly, "Kitty, take a rest. Sister will bring you back immediately." Kitty Li opened her mouth and breathed out silently from her pale lips. Apparently, her injury was extremely serious. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted as she gently stroked Kitty Li's soft hair. "Don't worry, close your eyes and sleep." Following that, she patted Chi-Chi's head. Chi-Chi brought Kitty Li and speedily left Yiqing Luo's back. With Chi-Chi protecting Kitty Li, Yiqing Luo didn't need to worry for the time being. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and looked at the Imperial Palace's old granny, whose eyes were filled with murderous intent. She clenched the glower flame fan in her hands tightly. "Last Luo, you're crazy." Old Man Song's anxious voice rang in her mind. "Do you know what you're doing now? Didn't I tell you before that you can only maintain your Earth-profound 4th grade ability and not use the power of the God Relic? The last time when Yiqing Luo lost control, if it wasn't for DMO Xian's presence, she really didn't know who could stop her. Once Yiqing Luo used the power of the God Relic, causing her to lose control again. The consequences were unimaginable." Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips as her expression congealed. "I can't think of any other way." Earlier, it wasn't that she couldn't escape from the Imperial Palace's old granny's attack. But if she were to escape, Kitty Li, who was trapped in the array, would also be strangled to death by that burst of energy. At the critical moment, Yiqing Luo could only think of using the Azure Dew Ring's power to release the barrier which belonged to the God Relic. The Imperial Palace's old granny had treated herself too well. After that attack, all her thoughts were placed on Fengling. Yiqing Luo also took this opportunity to let Chi-Chi transform into her battle form and immediately displayed her teleportation, using the Azure Dew Ring's power to forcefully break the Imperial Palace's old granny's array and save Kitty Li. She knew that after using the Azure Dew Ring's power, that inexplicable profound Enchi might possibly cause her to lose control again. But she had no other way. No matter what, she couldn't just watch Kitty Li get into trouble. She took a deep breath and looked up at the Imperial Palace's grandma. She clenched her fists and said, "Old Man Song, if I really lose control and hurt the people I care about, then use your power to stop me." "Girl Luo." Old Man Song stomped his feet anxiously in the Azure Dew bracelet. He couldn't be anxious in his heart, and was annoyed at himself for not being able to break through the last stage of cultivation. He just needed to break through the last stage of cultivation. He would be able to use his spiritual body to appear by Yiqing Luo's side to help her. Yiqing Luo ignored Old Man Song's dissuasion. She could not avoid this battle at all. Granny from the Imperial Palace would not give her a chance to escape. Little Vixen, an icy glint flashed across the Imperial Palace's granny's eyes. At this moment, Imperial Palace's granny was filled with murderous intent towards Yiqing Luo. This little vixen had seduced her most promising DMO Xian. She even hurt her most precious granddaughter. Furthermore, this little vixen didn't look simple at all. If they didn't get rid of it, they would definitely cause chaos in the Imperial Palace in the future. She must kill her. She didn't believe that Mo Xian, that fellow, would blame her for a shameless little vixen. With this thought in mind, Imperial Palace's granny's eerie eyes were filled with a biting cold, murderous intent. Immediately following that, Imperial Palace's granny's figure flashed, and like a huge bat, she leapt into the sky. But a moment later, she had already arrived in front of Yiqing Luo. The extreme cold, murderous intent made Yiqing Luo's back turn cold. Chapter 1465. Yiqing Luo was on high alert as she immediately opened her glower flame fan and rolled up a hurricane to block in front of her. Following that, her body sunk downwards, and using her footwork, she speedily got out of the attack range of the Imperial Palace's granny. The hurricane shone with a demonic red glow. The surrounding air was also intertwined under the hurricane's rotation. It directly brought up an earth-shattering, billowing airwave. Boom! The hurricane and the Imperial Palace's Granny's attack collided. The surrounding airwave was surging. Even though Yiqing Luo got out of the attack range, her arm was still cut by the airwave. Fresh blood instantly gushed out. Yiqing Luo's figure retreated more than 10 meters away. "Sister." Kitty Lee laid on Chi-Chi's back as she called out to Yiqing Luo weakly. Yiqing Luo stabilized herself as her eyes stared coldly at the Imperial Palace's Granny, who was laughing sinisterly with a solemn look on her face. She didn't have any extra time to check on her injury. The Imperial Palace's Granny's next attack was directed towards Yiqing Luo. He did not show any mercy at all. The Imperial Palace's Granny's attack was swift and violent, bringing up airwaves which seemed to be able to destroy the heavens and earth. Everywhere they passed, the ground split apart and revealed a long chasm. Yiqing Luo clenched her teeth as she merged the divine relic with her own energy and used all her skills to avoid the Imperial Palace's Granny's attack. And her mind kept analyzing the Imperial Palace's Granny's attack to counter it. Only, the difference in profound grade was not just to use the divine relic to turn defeat into victory. Yiqing Luo's evasion and finding a chance to counterattack the Imperial Palace's Granny. In the Imperial Palace's Granny's eyes, it was simply a struggle before death. A small earth-profound cultivator, even if she could control the divine relic's power. So what? The owner of the divine relic was a waste. How could she hope for the divine relic to turn the waste into a genius? But after a few moves, Yiqing Luo's body was already covered with wounds. Her green and white uniform had long been dyed red. Even her petite figure was on the verge of collapsing. Fresh blood slowly dripped down along her body. Yiqing Luo wiped the blood off her lips as she looked coldly at the Imperial Palace's Granny without any intention of giving in. Under the billowing airwaves, if one looked closely, indistinctly, in Yiqing Luo's pair of enchanting eyes, a devilish red glow was faintly appearing. Imperial Palace's Granny swept a contemptuous glance at Yiqing Luo and turned her head to look at Fengling. "Shaoling, are you satisfied?" Yiqing Luo, who was drenched in blood, looked as if her injuries were no lighter than Fengling's. Wendling was overjoyed. However, when Fengling saw the face that was still beautiful even though it was stained with blood, a hint of jealousy flashed in her eyes. "Granny, destroy that face of hers. Let's see what she uses to seduce the other ghosts in the underworld." "All right, Granny will destroy her face now." Granny of the Imperial Palace agreed to Fengling's request lovingly. Following that, he turned around and looked at Yiqing Luo, who was on the verge of collapsing, as though he was an evil spirit seeking for her life. His eyes were filled with sinister viciousness. His cloak and black robe fluttered. A withered, twig-like hand reached out from the cloak. The terrifying fingers flashed, revealing a sharp fingernail on the 5 fingers. It was like a sharp blade, shining with a cold light. Swoosh! A piercing sound was heard as Imperial Palace's Granny's figure approached Yiqing Luo's direction, and it brought along a surge of overbearing, profound qi, sweeping over. Yiqing Luo's footwork was immediately displayed, but no matter how she avoided, Imperial Palace's Granny's figure was able to follow her like a shadow. Chapter 1466 F***K. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but cursed. That was way too brutal, wasn't it? She actually wanted to ruin her face. She couldn't avoid it, so she could only retaliate. Yiqing Luo clenched her teeth tightly, enduring the pain in her arm as she clenched the glower flame fan tightly. A scorching feeling arose from the azure dew ring. Yiqing Luo shut her eyes as she activated her profound Jade Heart's profound qi, merging it with the power of the God Relic. She faced the Imperial Palace's Granny as the glower flame fan in her hand spun rapidly on her fingertips. Suddenly, an explosive red light burst out from between his palms. She used one hand to split the Imperial Palace's Granny's outstretched hand. The other hand spun the glower flame fan even faster, directly entering the Imperial Palace's Granny's chest. Bam, bam, bam. A deafening sound reverberated as the two forces collided. A terrifying and overbearing aura spread wildly in all directions. The ground was filled with sand and dust. The violent energy once again stirred up everything in the surroundings. The heat wave from the flame nest was like a surging sea of fire, howling madly. Crack! The sound of bones breaking was extremely clear at this moment. Bam! Another loud sound was heard. The Imperial Palace's granny retreated a few steps as both her feet were stuck into the ground, stabilizing her body. Her withered, wood-like hand pressed against her heart. Her cold eyes were filled with evil as she looked down at her own chest. Blood seeped out from the gaps of her withered wood fingers. Damn it, that little slut, how dare! The Imperial Palace's granny's venomous and cold voice made one shudder, whereas on the other side, Yiqing Luo gave a muffled moan as she spat out a mouthful of blood. Her body flew out stiffly. Sister! Kitty Lee's hoarse voice cried out Yiqing Luo's name in terror. At the same time, a furry body caught her firmly. It was Chi-Chi's smell. Yiqing Luo laid on Chi-Chi's body as she heard Kitty Lee's cries. Her breathing was heavy as her consciousness started to drift off. Intense pain spread throughout her internal organs, especially the pain in her arm, which made it even more unbearable. The moment she blocked the Imperial Palace's granny, the Imperial Palace's granny forcibly broke the bones in her left arm. Big sister, big sister. Kitty Lee's sobbing voice resounded in her ears. Faintly, Yiqing Luo seemed to have heard a familiar voice ringing beside her ears. It seemed to be very close. Qing Luo. Yiqing Luo. Madam Qing Luo. Different voices called out to her one after another. Vaguely, he could hear Kitty Lee sobbing and saying something. However, the voice was extremely faint, and she could not hear it clearly. The only thing he could be sure of was someone was calling her. Long Yinzhan? Yin Xiao He? Tong Ziqing? Or was it everyone in Devil Class? Those voices were so familiar, but Yiqing Luo didn't have the energy to respond. No, she could not fall. Kitty Lee and Chi-Chi were still by her side. If she fell, the Imperial Palace granny would not let them go. She could not fall. Her brothers were still waiting for her to return. Also, if DMO Xian knew that she had hurt him so badly, he would definitely feel heartache. He could not admit defeat just like that. She had to stand up. In the bottom of her heart, a conviction kept on surging. Yiqing Luo could feel that her own blood was constantly oozing out. An indescribable feeling near her heart, in the position of that profound jade heart, kept on surging. Her slender fingers trembled slightly. Following that, Chapter 1467. Beastman Clan, Cat Beast Clan Cat King's daughter, Li Mao, swear on the Cat Beast Clan's cat blood to set up a life and death contract with Master Yiqing Luo. I will follow Master Yiqing Luo for eternity. Li Mao's voice rang clearly in her ears. Yiqing Luo frowned. Well, what did this mean? What life and death contract? Before Yiqing Luo had time to think carefully, her lower jaw was lifted and her mouth seemed to be stuffed with some liquid. A fishy sweet taste filled her mouth. Following that, she felt a warm force pressing on her forehead. The next moment, Yiqing Luo felt a white light flashing in her head. Her entire body was covered by a scorching feeling. She could even feel the tiny blood vessels in her body, as well as the flow of blood. A mysterious force pervaded her limbs and bones. That seemed like profound qi, but also seemed like heaven and earth's spiritual qi. It kept roaming around in her body. But a moment later, the pain in Yiqing Luo's body disappeared. Even the blood, which was gushing out from her wounds, stopped flowing. J.R.A. Granny. Wind chimes stared in disbelief at the young woman who lay on the white tiger sacred beast's back and shone with a bewitching red light. She stuttered and called out to the granny of the Imperial Palace. She's, that little wild cat, is actually the Beastman Clan's cat princess. Imperial Palace's granny's cold gaze stared coldly at the two of them who were in the midst of the contract, as a chilly glint appeared in her eyes. What Beastman clan? Granny she... Is she going to advance again? Feng Ling didn't understand the meaning of Imperial Palace's granny's words. She only knew that she sensed an extremely strong energy from Yiqing Luo. Originally, Yiqing Luo's profound grade, to her, was not able to pose any threat to her. But now, the surge of energy from Yiqing Luo's body made Feng Ling fearful. Imperial Palace's granny squinted her sinister cold eyes as she felt blood oozing out from her palms, which made her eyes turn even colder. This little slut was really not a simple character. This was the first time she was injured by such a young lass. Even the cat princess, in order to save this little slut, was willing to sign a life and death contract with her. If he didn't get rid of it, there would be future troubles. A murderous aura shot out from the Imperial Palace's granny's eyes. She clenched her fists and was about to rush towards a young girl who was still accepting the contract. Then she heard wind chimes cry out in surprise. "Grandma, look, what is that?" Granny of the Imperial Palace looked in the direction Feng Ling was pointing. He saw Yiqing Luo's body, unknowingly enveloped by a layer of extremely gloomy black qi. That black qi was obviously evil qi. Wisps of evil qi kept twining around Yiqing Luo's body, as though it was trying to probe into her body. However, before he could even get close, Yiqing Luo's surrounding rays of red light blocked that black qi, directly separating it. Granny of the Imperial Palace frowned and looked at the black gas with deep meaning in her eyes. After a while, the black gas was completely devoured by the red light. At the same time, the airwaves surrounding Yiqing Luo started to churn rapidly. Bang! An extremely ferocious, profound energy instantly dispersed all the whirlpools and hurricanes in the surroundings. Yiqing Luo opened her eyes. A pair of enchanting eyes shot out a piercingly cold glint, turning into a sharp blade as it flew towards the direction of Imperial Palace's granny. Imperial Palace's granny's pupils constricted as she scooped up Feng Ling and swiftly evaded. Chapter 1468. Yiqing Luo floated in the air. A burst of fierce, profound qi lingered around her body. Her green and white uniform had been dyed red, like a blooming, bloodthirsty poppy, enchanting and captivating. Promoted to Earth Profound 5th grade. Promoted to Earth Profound 6th grade. Promoted. Yiqing Luo's surrounding aura rose rapidly. That grandparent and granddaughter duo were stunned. When a cultivator was promoting, they would form a self-protection barrier. No one could break through the barrier and attack the cultivator who was promoting. Even the Imperial Palace's granny was unable to attack Yiqing Luo at this time. Imperial Palace's granny's eyes were filled with evil coldness. Even she couldn't believe her own eyes. After living for so long, she had never seen a person who could promote so quickly. Who exactly was this little bitch? Why did she have such terrifying power? Yiqing Luo could clearly feel that her body was filled with extremely strong, profound qi. One grade after another, surging violently in her body. Finally, a burst of strong, profound qi rushed straight to the profound jade heart. The blood in her body seemed to be boiling. The profound qi gradually stopped. Promotion stopped. Earth Profound 9th grade. And it was the peak of Earth Profound 9th grade. She was just short of an opportunity to promote directly to Sky Profound Realm. She was absolutely a pervert. Imperial Palace's granny could no longer conceal her shock. One must know how difficult it was to promote a grade in the Earth Profound Realm. Even Feng Ling. She had been using high-grade medicinal pills and various medicinal herbs since young, and now Feng Ling was only in the Earth Profound 7th grade. If Feng Ling wanted to promote a grade, she would need to use at least 100,000 gold coins worth of medicinal pills to barely guarantee that Feng Ling would be promoted within a year. But Yiqing Luo actually promoted 5 grades in a row at this moment. Imperial Palace's granny was extremely vexed at this moment. Why didn't she kill Yi Qing Luo directly? Yi Qing Luo clenched her fists, feeling the profound qi in her body merging with her body, converging. The strong aura in her body made her feel extremely comfortable. Last Luo, you've really picked up a treasure. Old Man Song's tense voice came from her mind. He seemed to have been nervous for a long time. At this time, his voice was a little hoarse. This old man forgot that you have a beastman kitten by your side. Yi Qing Luo turned her head and looked at the unconscious kitty, Li, who was lying on top of Chi. What's going on? She couldn't quite remember what had happened just now. Old Man Song let out a long sigh of relief. Li Mao is the princess of the Cat Beast clan. She has the purest blood of the Cat Beast clan. She signed a life and death contract with you, and you received the bloodline inheritance of the Cat Beast clan. Regarding the bloodline inheritance, Yi Qing Luo had heard Old Man Song mention it before. Kitty actually signed a life and death contract with him? Once this contract was signed, they would be inseparable for all eternity. Furthermore, Kitty Li was the princess of the Cat Beast clan. This also meant that she would definitely go back and inherit the Cat Beast clan in the future. Was it really okay to form a contract with her like this? I really don't know why you're so lucky. Old Man Song had a helpless tone as he lightly sighed. You were actually able to trigger the fusion of the divine tool and the profound jade heart before you fainted. In addition, Kitty Li took the initiative to swear a blood oath, which allowed you to seize the opportunity to advance. This kind of advancement method, it required the right conditions and people. Coincidentally, Yi Qing Luo had all of them. There was no one else with this kind of luck. Chapter 1469. She was able to advance. It was her brothers who awakened her willpower. It was them who gave her the courage to never admit defeat. So she was able to use her willpower to activate the God Relic. Looking at the pale-faced Kitty Li, Yi Qing Luo's gaze gradually turned gentle. She moved her lips lightly and said silently, Kitty, thank you. Little slut, Granny wants to see how powerful you are after inheriting the bloodline inheritance. Imperial Palace's Granny didn't give Yi Qing Luo any chance to merge her powers. If this little slut wasn't eliminated soon, she would be a huge threat to her. This kind of pervert was too scary. She wanted to nip Yi Qing Luo in the bud. Imperial Palace's Granny's hoarse and sharp voice was extremely ear-piercing. The next moment, she had already rolled up a terrifying profound chi and attacked towards Yi Qing Luo's face. However, her attack had actually landed on thin air. Following Yi Qing Luo's breath, Imperial Palace's Granny turned her head. She saw Yi Qing Luo looking at her with a smile, which didn't look like a smile. That pair of long and narrow eyes were filled with ridicule and coldness. Imperial Palace's Granny's expression suddenly turned cold as her gloomy eyes revealed a strong, murderous intent. This little slut dared to belittle her. She had merely advanced to Earth Profound 9th grade. Did she really treat herself as an expert? Imperial Palace's Granny was furious as her figure flashed and immediately attacked towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. This time, Imperial Palace's Granny was watching Yi Qing Luo's actions closely. But she saw that blood-red robe was like a jumping flame as it flashed past her eyes. Strong, profound chi revolved around her body, as though it was driving the heaven and earth's spiritual chi. Every move was so nimble that no one could catch up to it. This was like a cat. That's right, it was a cat. After inheriting the bloodline inheritance of the cat race, Yi Qing Luo herself would also obtain the power of the cat race. Of course, this didn't mean that Yi Qing Luo could be like Kitty Li, using her hands as cat claws. But she had the characteristics of a cat. For example, the body's nimbleness and flexibility. For example, the sense of the surrounding environment and the acute sense of smell, etc. As long as it was a cat's characteristic, it had already integrated into Yi Qing Luo's body. Yiqing Luo's speed was originally extremely fast. Coupled with that set of footwork, it was even harder to fathom. Now that she had inherited the cat-beast bloodline, her speed was almost comparable to lightning. Even the Imperial Palace's old granny couldn't follow her like she used to. The Imperial Palace's granny's eyes were sinister as she suddenly yelled, "Little bitch, if you dare to dodge again, I'll strangle this brat to death right now." Yiqing Luo was stunned as her brows creased. The Imperial Palace's granny extended her withered, wood-like fingers to her side. Suddenly, an extremely strong suction force filled the entire space. In the next instant, a figure sprang up from the rubble and trees. It landed steadily on the arm of the Imperial Palace. The young man was dressed in black, and his body was covered in scratches from the rubble and trees. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted abruptly. Wind. It was Ah Feng. Why was he here? And he was captured by the Imperial Palace's granny? Yi. Miss Yi. Ah Feng spat out the 3 words with difficulty. His throat was forcefully pinched by the Imperial Palace's granny. His face turned pale, and he couldn't make any sound. Chapter 1470. Imperial Palace's granny saw Yiqing Luo's expression, and her malicious eyes revealed a delighted smile. This kid is obviously a lackey of the Imperial Palace, but he dares to side with an outsider like you. The Imperial Palace's granny sneered contemptuously. Granny, even if I kill him, it's to rid the Imperial Palace of a disloyal lackey. Looking at the Imperial Palace's granny's tightening fingers, Yiqing Luo clenched her teeth tightly. He's listening to Hua Xian's instructions and listening to my orders. What kind of disloyalty is that? Are you showing off in front of Grandma? That brat Mo Xian treats you so well that he even sent the Imperial Palace's lackeys to you? Grandma narrowed her eyes. Yiqing Luo clenched her fists tightly and remained silent. The Imperial Palace's grandma looked at the dying Ah Feng with disdain and snorted. You're quite loyal. It's not impossible for you to save this brat. Yiqing Luo's brows creased as she looked at her vigilantly. The Imperial Palace's granny sneered and turned to look at Feng Ling. Little Ling, come here. Wind Chimes, who had taken the medicinal pill from the granny in the Imperial Palace and recovered most of her body, got up from the ground and jogged to the granny in the Imperial Palace. Imperial Palace's old granny pushed Feng Ling towards Yiqing Luo. If you don't dodge or evade, don't defend or defend, and receive 3 strike from Xiaoling, I will make the decision to give this fellow to you. Delight shone in Windling's eyes. Imperial Palace granny, Ah Feng said with difficulty. You killed subordinate, shut up. She clenched her hand and stopped Ah Feng. You don't have the right to speak here. Sure. Yiqing Luo looked coldly at the Imperial Palace's granny's hand. I can agree to your request, but you must use your reputation as the Imperial Palace's granny to guarantee that you will spare Win's life. The Imperial Palace's granny snorted coldly. Do you have the right to negotiate with me? Then, let's have a life and death struggle. Yiqing Luo's tone was cold, and her eyes were filled with killing intent. Granny's face darkened. This little slut has quite a backbone. She snorted coldly. Fine, I'll agree to your request. Then, she loosened her grip on Ah Feng's neck. Ah Feng opened his mouth, wanting to dissuade Yiqing Luo, but after a long period of suffocation, he had no energy to speak. Little Ling, go. Granny of the Imperial Palace said faintly. Feng Ling's eyes were filled with joy and excitement as she jealously stared at Yiqing Luo's devastatingly beautiful face, gritting her teeth as she laughed. Yiqing Luo, you have such a day too. Just as she finished her words, Feng Ling's sleeves fluttered and 2 pieces of jade-green satin went straight towards Yiqing Luo's chest. Bang! There was a loud noise. Yiqing Luo's body was struck by that satin and flew backwards. There was a sharp pain in her chest. Yiqing Luo stabilized her body, raised her eyes, and said calmly, the first move. Wind Chime scowled, and her gaze was fierce. Her ethereal face had long since become twisted and savage. All right, look at the second move. Before she could make a move, Granny of the Imperial Palace stopped Fengling. She stared at Yi Qing Luo with interest. She had not expected Yi Qing Luo to comply with the request and forcefully take on Fengling's attack. She took another look at Ah Feng, who was struggling to get up. "Little slut, are you sure you want to sacrifice yourself to save his dog life?" Granny of the Imperial Palace felt that it was ridiculous. He was just a secret guard. Was it worth Yi Qing Luo to use her life to exchange for him? Or was it that Yi Qing Luo had the confidence that she could survive within 3 moves from Fengling? Even if Yi Qing Luo could survive, she would not let Yi Qing Luo leave this place alive. But Chapter 1471. Little slut, if it wasn't for him, my precious granddaughter wouldn't be able to come here to block you. Your whereabouts are all betrayed by him. Imperial Palace's Granny squinted her malicious eyes as she sneered sinisterly. Yi Qing Luo frowned as her gaze swept past Wind, who had fallen beside Imperial Palace's Granny's feet. Wind moved his lips, but was unable to make a sound. Seeing Yi Qing Luo's silence, Imperial Palace's Granny's eyes overflowed with ridicule. Before she opened her mouth, she heard Yi Qing Luo's cold voice. "Imperial Palace's Granny, don't you feel that your method of sowing discord is too childish?" Imperial Palace's Granny's complacent smile froze on her lips as her eyes sunk. "As the person in charge of the Imperial Palace, I am very clear about the whereabouts of the Imperial Palace's secret guards. Mo Xian placed this lad by your side, which means that no matter where you go, as the person in charge of the Imperial Palace, he will know your whereabouts clearly." Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed as something seemed to have pierced her heart fiercely. Yi Qing Luo didn't doubt the authenticity of Imperial Palace's Granny's words. Mo Xian was indeed able to accurately pinpoint the exact location she was at. Previously, she thought it was because of the profound Phoenix Ring and profound Dragon Ring. Now it seemed that it was because Wind had been following her in the dark. Imperial Palace's Granny was trying to provoke her trust towards Wind, and to provoke her trust towards Mo Xian. Yi Qing Luo scoffed, "So what?" Imperial Palace's Granny frowned, as she didn't expect Yi Qing Luo's heart to be so firm. "Imperial Palace's Granny, you're indeed old. I'm sick of your tricks 10 years ago." Yi Qing Luo gave Imperial Palace's Granny a disdainful glance. "The reason why I'm here is to bring Wind away. If you want to take 3 strikes, be quick and don't waste time." Fengling's first strike wasn't soft at all. Her chest was still trembling in pain. If she continued to waste time with Imperial Palace's Granny, she probably wouldn't be able to take Fengling's second strike. Imperial Palace's Granny's eyes darkened as she sneered. "Granny, I want to see how unyielding you are." She stopped speaking and looked at wind chimes beside her. "Young Ling, second move." Fengling's face was ferocious, and her eyes were filled with intense hatred. She flipped her hands, and the silk cloth billowed in her palms. After that, a strand of powerful, profound energy shot out from within his body. Fengling's face was filled with viciousness as she sneered and directed all her energy towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. The horrifying, profound qi was like a monstrous wave that engulfed Yi Qing Luo in a split second. Fengling's second move was extremely ruthless. Compared to the power of the first move, it was many times stronger. The Imperial Palace's Granny looked at her granddaughter's profound rank with satisfaction, as well as that terrifying power, and nodded in satisfaction. Feeling this powerful force, he felt the overwhelming force corroding him. Yi Qing Luo wasn't flustered or fearful at all. This was especially so when he saw how the old woman in the Imperial Palace looked at wind chimes with admiration. She narrowed her eyes, and a sly and mocking sneer flashed past her long and narrow eyes. The devouring flame fan in his hand quietly opened. Chi-Chi, who had received Yi Qing Luo's gaze, was ready to strike. Yi Qing Luo had never been one to sit still and wait for death. To let her take 3 moves from Fengling obediently? Not only would she not take 3 moves from Fengling obediently, she also wanted to save Windling unscathed. The first move was aimed at Feng Ling, and she wouldn't use her full strength to kill her directly in one move. In order to make the Imperial Palace's granny and Feng Ling let down their guard, Yiqing Luo had forcefully held on and endured that move. Indeed, it was as Yiqing Luo had expected. Chapter 1472. Feng Ling's second attack had already blanketed the area. The terrifying sharp edge was like a sharp blade that could kill everything in the world, making it impossible for anyone to hide. She clenched the glower flame fan tightly as she prepared for the next step of action. Bam, boom, boom, boom. Two deafening sounds spread from all directions. The entire raging flame nest shook. The ground, which had already cracked, once again cracked open like a spider web. Soon after, the thin crack in the spider web suddenly exploded. Gravel flew everywhere as a gush of powerful energy made one aghast. But Yiqing Luo had a dazed look on her face. Looking at her surroundings, that terrifying power was constantly lingering around her, but no matter what, it was unable to harm her. She was even more dazed. She had not even had the time to make a move. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo's body felt light as a strong pulling force pulled her backwards. Yiqing Luo had yet to struggle when an elegant sandalwood scent entered her nose. In a split second, it made her restless heart calm down. Her soft back leaned against a burning chest. She felt a warmth which she had never felt before. A strong and powerful arm circled around her waist and hugged her tightly. Yiqing Luo's devastatingly beautiful face revealed a joyful smile. This warmth, this aura, it made one feel at ease. Her lips curled up slightly as she speedily turned around and her hands wrapped around the neck of the person behind her, Xian. It was her, Xian. He had come. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes were filled with a watery luster. She met Dmo Xian's peach blossom eyes, which seemed to carry thousands of tender feelings. For pairs of eyes met, and everything was silent. Under his gaze, Yiqing Luo had a kind of feeling that there were only the two of them in this world. Dmo Xian tightened the young lady's soft body in his arms as he deeply inhaled the fragrance from her body, until he felt her warmth. Dmo Xian's restless heart then calmed down slightly. The young lady in his arms was stained with red blood. He could no longer differentiate if this blood was Feng Ling's or her own. Dmo Xian could clearly feel the viscous liquid in his palms when he hugged the young lady. His pupils constricted, and a cold and murderous expression appeared on his peerless face. His thin lips moved slightly. His mellow voice was filled with concern and worry, as well as unconcealable pain and annoyance. Lil Luo air, I'm late, Xian. Yiqing Luo smiled like a flower as she hooked her arms around his neck and tiptoed to kiss his lips forcefully. It's not late. I've been waiting for you. Dmo Xian tightened his arms. However, he was worried that he would touch her wound, so he slowly loosened his grip. I'm sorry. Dmo Xian's warm kisses slowly imprinted on her forehead, glabella eyes. With his guilt, Yiqing Luo suddenly felt a surge of warmth in her heart. Although he kept telling himself in his heart, if Dmo Xian sensed that she was in danger and rushed over, sandwiched between her and the Imperial Palace granny, he would definitely be in a dilemma. He only wanted to rely on himself to solve the crisis in front of him and bring Kitty Li and Feng away safely. Don't let Dmo Xian get involved. But in the deepest part of her heart, she still hoped that Dmo Xian would appear, to be able to descend from the sky like a deity at this moment. Only this kind of war moment would not last for long. After the whirlpool dissipated, Imperial Palace Granny and Feng Ling could clearly see that valiant barrier which had blocked Feng Ling's attack. Chapter 1473. Feng Ling's face turned as pale as paper, as though she had suffered a blow, as she staggered backwards. Brother D. A broken voice spilled out from her mouth. Feng Ling's eyes gazed at Dmo Xian's direction in a daze, as she stretched out her hand. Brother D. Brother D. However, the man behind the barrier didn't even shift his gaze towards Feng Ling. Feng Ling's hand, which was frozen in midair, curled up one by one as it shrank back. Imperial Palace's granny's eyes were gloomy, as her chilly gaze piercingly pierced the two who were hugging each other. But unfortunately, the two of them were in a lovey-dovey mood, as though they couldn't tolerate everything around them. Imperial Palace's granny's heart was filled with anger, as she screamed in a sharp voice, "Mo Xian, come over here." That voice broke through the barrier which Mo Xian had conjured as it fell into their ears. Mo Xian frowned slightly, as his purple robe fluttered as he kept that barrier. "Mo Xian, this is your attitude when you see Granny?" Imperial Palace's granny narrowed her sinister eyes as she berated. "Granny, don't blame Brother D." Feng Ling immediately pleaded for Mo Xian, as a pair of watery, beautiful eyes gazed at Mo Xian. Imperial Palace's granny heard her precious granddaughter's voice as her expression softened. Following that, she suppressed her anger as she stared coldly at Mo Xian. "On account of Xiaoling's plea for you, Granny will not haggle over your impoliteness. Now let go of that little vixen." "Granny." Mo Xian's cold voice suppressed Imperial Palace's granny's voice. Yiqing Luo felt Mo Xian's imposing manner as it continued to rise. The terrifying aura merged with that majestic aura. The surrounding air froze at this instance. This was Yiqing Luo's first time seeing this kind of Mo Xian. The Mo Xian in front of her was always a living, evildoer appearance. But this time, she saw a different Mo Xian. This was a sign of Mo Xian's anger. Imperial Palace's granny's expression sunk. "Mo Xian, are you going against Granny because of that little vixen?" Grandma's face darkened. "Mo Xian, are you going to go against Grandma for that little vixen?" "She is not a vixen. Her name is Yiqing Luo. This lord does not wish to hear any insult to my beloved woman from Grandma's mouth." Mo Xian's cold voice was sonorous and powerful. He looked coldly at the Imperial Palace's old granny. There was no longer any respect on his face. "Mo Xian." Imperial Palace's grandma stared at Mo Xian in disbelief, unable to believe that Mo Xian would actually say such words. Mo Xian's eyes were icy cold, and his majestic, imposing manner was daunting. "Grandma, this lord respects you as an elder. Hence there are many things in the Imperial Palace that this lord can turn a blind eye to. On account of Grandma's face, this lord has also tolerated Xiaoling." But Mo Xian's expression sunk, and the icy cold aura around him had already sunk to the bottom. "Grandma, you shouldn't have touched this lord's reverse scale." The Imperial Palace's grandma took a step back in shock under the gaze of those cold peach blossom eyes. In this heaven and earth, the only person this lord wants to protect is Lil Luo alone. Mo Xian slowly released Yiqing Luo's waist as his purple sleeves fluttered slightly. Two gusts of hurricanes revolved around him. He took a step forward. The innate arrogance seemed to be above the heaven and earth. It made one subconsciously wanted to kneel down and worship. Chapter 1474. If the heavens hurt her, I will definitely go against the heavens. Following this sonorous and forceful oath, two hurricanes transformed into enormous waves that shook the heavens and mixed with vast and boundless profound energy suddenly exploded outwards. Two hurricanes collided with a profound energy. Immediately, it went straight towards the direction of Imperial Palace's granny. Imperial Palace's granny's eyes were filled with rage and astonishment. "Mo Xian, you really want to break ties with Granny for a fox woman?" Thinking of Mo Xian's gaze earlier, Imperial Palace's granny swallowed the three words vixen back in her stomach. Imperial Palace's granny couldn't believe it. An outsider, a woman whom she had only known for a few months. DMO Xian actually made a move against her. This was the first time in her life that DMO Xian disrespected her. Granny. Feng Ling couldn't believe her own eyes. Brother D, do you know what you're doing? That's Granny, our beloved Granny. Feng Ling had always relied on Imperial Palace's Granny's position in the Imperial Palace. This was DMO Xian's respect towards Imperial Palace's Granny. But for Yiqing Luo, DMO Xian didn't even acknowledge Granny. In his heart, was Yiqing Luo really that important? So important that he could even abandon Granny in the Imperial Palace? Bam, bam, bam. Rumble. Earth-shaking collisions resounded wave after wave. The sound almost spread throughout the entire flame nest. Smoke filled the air, and the surroundings were covered by flying sand and stones. But Yiqing Luo still saw it clearly. The direction where DMO Xian attacked. It had completely turned into nothingness. In the nothingness, in that transparent barrier, two figures were extremely conspicuous. Yiqing Luo was completely shocked by this scene. She was deeply shocked. What kind of power was this? It was close to destroying the heavens and earth. Even though she was protected behind DMO Xian, she could still clearly feel that powerful and terrifying profound energy. Looking at the flat ground, Imperial Palace's Granny, who had barely formed the barrier, was already in a sorry state. Yiqing Luo had crossed hands with Imperial Palace's Granny. She was very clear on how powerful Imperial Palace's Granny was. Imperial Palace's Granny must be above sky profound, a realm which she had never come into contact with. But under DMO Xian's light attack, he was in such a sorry state that he didn't even have the room to fight back. DMO Xian, just how powerful was he? It was only until now that the two people in the boundary understood that DMO Xian was serious. Hurt Yiqing Luo. That was touching his reverse scale. For Yiqing Luo, DMO Xian even dared to defy the heavens. Not to mention, it was just them. DMO Xian's reckless action for Yiqing Luo made Feng Ling's heart ache. The man she loved, in front of her, gave everything to another woman. How cruel was this to her? Tears welled up in Feng Ling's eyes. Brother D, you actually dare to lay a hand on Grandma. Aren't you afraid that this matter will spread to the Imperial Palace? What will the disciples of the Imperial Palace think of you? Big Brother D, for a woman, just for a woman, you disregarded our many years of friendship and Granny's kindness in raising you. Ha! Ha! As she laughed, she began to sob uncontrollably. Imperial Palace's Granny gently pulled Feng Ling into her arms as her cold eyes were filled with a chilly intent. If I didn't care about Granny, this strike would not just be a warning. Chapter 1475. Her resolute words were like sharp silver needles. Needles after needles pierced Wind Chime's heart. DMO Xian was serious. He really wanted to kill them. That attack earlier was just a warning from DMO Xian. For Yiqing Luo, DMO Xian would really disregard everything, right? Wind Chime took a few steps back while she looked like she was about to fall. He tripped over a boulder and fell backwards. Imperial Palace's Granny hurriedly supported Feng Ling as her eyes stared coldly at DMO Xian, speaking in a chilly tone. Mo Xian, Granny is too disappointed in you. She hugged Feng Ling tightly, and her breathing quickened. Thick anger was released from her body. Following that, Imperial Palace's Granny's gaze turned towards Yiqing Luo, who was behind DMO Xian. Those sinister eyes were like those of a venomous snake, causing one's hair to stand on end. What a good little girl. Just by relying on her beauty, she actually managed to make the successor that I have painstakingly cultivated fall head over heels for. Good. Great. When Yiqing Luo heard what the Imperial Palace's old Granny said, the expression on her face didn't change at all. She quietly leaned on DMO Xian's side, her slender wrist circling around his firm waist. Her heart was filled with sweetness. She remembered that she had asked DMO Xian before. If Feng Ling really bullied her, what would he do? He said that she was his only reverse scale. Now, DMO Xian had used his own actions to show that his words were not just empty words. DMO Xian's deep affection. The words of the Imperial Palace's old granny meant nothing to her. DMO Xian tightened his grip on the person in his arms. His imposing manner did not diminish as he stared coldly at Imperial Palace's grandma. Grandma, this lord is too disappointed in you. You. The Imperial Palace's granny's eyes darkened as she gritted her teeth. The granny that this lord knows is extremely capable. When this lord is not around, she is able to handle all the affairs in the Imperial Palace properly. DMO Xian opened his mouth indifferently, his tone carrying a tinge of coldness. But Yiqing Luo could hear it. Rather than saying it was cold, it would be better to say that DMO Xian was extremely disappointed with Imperial Palace's granny's behavior today. But because of a few words from wind chimes, you killed the woman I value. DMO Xian's tone gradually rose, revealing a trace of anger. You can disregard our friendship of many years for Fengling. For Lil Luo, I could do everything. Every single word spat out from DMO Xian's thin lips. The Imperial Palace's granny swayed slightly, her fingers clenched into fists. Good. Very good. The extremely hoarse voice was extremely ear-piercing. As soon as the Imperial Palace's grandma's voice fell, a trace of ruthlessness flashed in her sinister eyes. In the next instant, she grabbed Fengling's body and soared into the sky like a giant bat with its wings spread. DMO Xian subconsciously hugged Yiqing Luo tightly as he opened up a barrier. However, the Imperial Palace's granny suddenly raised a strange sneer, her black cloak fluttering in the air. Boom! An earth-shattering giant wave surged up ferociously. The direction of the attack wasn't Yiqing Luo. Instead, not far away from Yiqing Luo, outside the battlefield. Kitty. Yiqing Luo's vision fell towards that direction. It was Kitty Li who was leaning against a huge rock, half lying down. Just as Yiqing Luo was prepared to receive Fengling's second strike, she specially asked Chi-Chi to place Kitty Li at a safe place before going to save Wind. At this moment, Chi-Chi was guarding beside Wind. There was no time to rush to Kitty Li's side. Chapter 1476. Lil Luo, DMO Xian's face sunk as he stretched out his hand to grab Yiqing Luo's body. You can't block that move. His long arm pulled Yiqing Luo backwards as he moved towards Kitty Li. But Imperial Palace's granny's attack was extremely swift, under DMO Xian and Yiqing Luo's pull. By the time DMO Xian rushed over, that profound chi from Imperial Palace's granny was as heavy as Mount Tai, exploding towards Kitty Li overbearingly. Kitty. Yiqing Luo's pupils dilated, looking at the dust on the ground, smoke curling up, pervading everything in front of her. Yiqing Luo seemed to have lost all her strength as she fell into DMO Xian's arms. Kitty. In Yiqing Luo's heart, a raging hatred and anger surged from the bottom of her heart. Gradually, it became boiling. Her kitty had just handed over the rest of her life to her kitty. So fast. Yiqing Luo's eyes suddenly shone with an enchanting red glow. Old, woman, man. Yiqing Luo's hoarse voice shouted out these three words sharply. Her entire body tensed up as she leaned against DMO Xian's arms, trembling slightly. Her tightly curled 5 fingers, each of them turning white. I want you to be buried with Kitty. Yiqing Luo struggled, wanting to rush towards the direction of Imperial Palace's granny. But her waist was held tightly by DMO Xian. Lil Luo, calm down. DMO Xian imprisoned Yiqing Luo, looking at the young lady whose eyes were already dyed red, his brows knitted tightly. His hand pressed Yiqing Luo's wrist, checking her pulse. Overlord lad, you've noticed. Suddenly, a voice rang beside DMO Xian's ear. DMO Xian was stunned as he reacted. This voice wasn't it the guardian of Yiqing Luo's azure dew bracelet. Old man Song? DMO, Xian's brows knitted tightly as he meditated in his heart. Lil Luo, Xin. Old man Song sighed deeply. Actually, before Kitty Lee and Lass Luo signed the life and death contract, I sensed a gust of profound Shi attempting to infiltrate Lass Luo's body. DMO, Xian's expression turned grave. Coincidentally, the Luo girl activated the power of the divine tool and fused it with the profound heart jade. With the addition of the bloodline inheritance, the Luo girl was able to advance and forcefully block the profound Chi outside. Old man Song's voice became heavier and heavier. The scene of Granny attacking Kitty Lee in the Imperial Palace gave the mysterious energy and opportunity to take advantage of. As soon as Old man Song's voice fell, DMO Xian could feel the young lady in his arms. The flame around her suddenly rose sharply in this instance. Her scarlet eyes were suffused with a bewitching red glow, making her look extremely bewitching. Her slender hand whipped up a gust of wind and slammed down on his chest. Little Luo, DMO Xian clasped her wrist and easily dissolved the profound qi that Yiqing Luo released. Yiqing Luo's expression was tainted with a sliver of madness as her eyes were suffused with a cold glint. I want to kill you. Kill you, she muttered in a low voice that sounded like it came from hell. Little Luo. DMO Xian's eyes were frozen as his peach blossom eyes narrowed slightly, seeing that his voice was unable to awaken Yiqing Luo. He clenched his fists tightly and suddenly hugged Yiqing Luo's waist tightly as he clasped her lower jaw and kissed her directly. The warm kiss scorched Yiqing Luo's icy cold lips. His kiss was extremely forceful, rude, and overbearing, and there was a slight tingling sensation. And Yiqing Luo's nose gave out a soft moan. The red glow in her eyes gradually faded. Chapter 1477. Kitty. Yiqing Luo's eyes suddenly cleared up. Her line of sight met with DMO Xian's worried peach blossom eyes. The warm sensation on her lips made her face turn red as she raised her fist and pushed DMO Xian's chest. What are you doing? Hearing her voice finally returning to normal, DMO Xian's arms held her tightly in his embrace. Your body. Do you sense any strange presence? Strange presence? Yiqing Luo was puzzled, but she obediently circulated her profound qi to sense her body and immediately shook her head. No? What's the matter? DMO Xian's brows creased tightly as he stared deeply at the young lady in his arms. After some time, he slowly shook his head. Nothing. Saying that, he held her tightly in his arms again. Yiqing Luo was dumbfounded. She opened her mouth and was about to say something when she suddenly heard a scream. Hey, stinky hooligan, where are your hands touching? What followed was the crisp sound of a slap. Kitty? This voice made Yiqing Luo immediately turn her head towards Kitty Lee's direction. Right? Earlier, she saw Imperial Palace's Granny launching an extremely strong attack towards Kitty Lee, who had no energy at all. Then, she had no memory at all. When she looked towards Kitty Lee's side, Yiqing Luo was still racking her brains as she instantly forgot about searching her memories. Instructor Mo. Yiqing Luo looked at the white-robed young man who appeared in front of her in astonishment. The young man who had one arm around Kitty Lee and the other covering his face wasn't Mo. Why was he here? Not only Mo, Gui Wu, Instructor Luo, and Instructor Lee were also here. The few instructors couldn't conceal the astonishment in their eyes when they saw the place which had been razed to the ground. Gui Wu walked over slowly as his malicious eyes swept past Yiqing Luo and DMO Xian without any emotion on his face. Following that, he directly strode towards Imperial Palace's Granny. Master Gui Wu. Yiqing Luo frowned as she immediately opened her mouth to dissuade Gui Wu from approaching Imperial Palace's Granny. But her arm tightened as she turned her head. DMO, Xian, shook his head. Yiqing Luo was stunned as she looked at Gui Wu, who had already walked to the front of the Imperial Palace's old granny, and stopped her words of persuasion. That's right. Zoemo was able to easily block Granny's powerful attack and save Kitty Lee. With Gui Wu's strength, he would definitely not lose to the Imperial Palace's grandma. The Imperial Palace's granny's eyes were cold and sinister. Her gaze was like a sharp blade. He did not expect these ants to be so lucky. Each and every one of them could be saved. Her cold, malicious eyes glared at the extremely handsome young man in the white robe, and she secretly guessed his identity. Someone who could block her attack. There weren't many of them in the Nirvana realm. Who was this young man? As she pondered, she did not even realize that Gui Wu had already walked in front of her. Holy Mother, I haven't seen you for so many years. Have you become so weak that you don't even have your guard up? A deep voice came into the ears of the Imperial Palace's grandma. That form of address made the expression of the Imperial Palace's grandma freeze. Her gaze immediately fixed on Gui Wu. You. The hoarse voice revealed a trace of doubt. Imperial Palace's grandma's malicious brows suddenly contracted. Gui Wu. I didn't expect Holy Mother to still remember me. Gui Wu's expression was calm and indifferent. Chapter 1478. She didn't say the words realm of the dead. Gui Wu's calm gaze swept across the desolate surroundings. The Holy Mother's temper is still the same as before. She's completely fearless. Causing such a huge commotion, does she want to return? Granny's eyes flashed. That little girl is my student. Gui Wu shot a glance at Yiqing Luo. It's just a young lady, and yet Holy Mother had to personally take action. I wonder how my student had angered Holy Mother? The Imperial Palace's grandma's face darkened, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. She did not answer, but Feng Ling, who was protected behind her, stuck her head out. She pursed her lips tightly and said in displeasure, Grandma, who is he? Why do I keep calling you Virgin Mary? Yiqing Luo, that little slut's reinforcements. Is she trying to claim connections with you? Youngling, the Imperial Palace's granny shouted and pulled wind chime behind her. Shut up. Gui Wu quirked his eyebrows and cast a glance at Feng Ling. That's your granddaughter? The Imperial Palace's granny quickly covered Feng Ling even more tightly and said in a gloomy tone, You'd better stay by your student's side at all times. Once he finished speaking, he tightened his arms around Feng Ling, turned around, and with one move, he appeared 328 feet away. While she was treating Win's injuries, Yiqing Luo, who was paying attention to Gui Wu and Imperial Palace's granny situation, looked in astonishment at the direction where Imperial Palace's granny had disappeared. Gui Wu and Imperial Palace's granny know each other? After a long while, DMO Xian didn't respond. She raised her eyes and looked at DMO Xian. But she saw DMO Xian's grave expression, as though he was pondering over something. Yiqing Luo's brows creased slightly as she gently put down Win's arm, stood up, and stuck close to DMO Xian. She wrapped her arms around DMO Xian's. DMO Xian regained his senses and his lips curled up as he wrapped his arms around her waist. What's the matter? Right from the start, you've been behaving strangely. Can't you tell me what you're thinking about? Yiqing Luo raised her finger and gently caressed DMO Xian's frowning brows. DMO Xian remained silent for a moment. Something related to me? Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she leaned close to his face. Her slender fingers traced the creases on DMO Xian's brows. You will only reveal such a complicated expression when it's related to me. You? DMO Xian's thin lips moved as he looked at Yiqing Luo's calm gaze. In the end, he sighed and narrated the incident of Yiqing Luo losing control in a concise and comprehensive manner. Lil Luo, the mysterious Inchi, may have always existed in a certain place on your body. Once there's an opportunity, it will seize the opportunity to enter. DMO Xian's brows creased tightly. Earlier I asked you to feel if there's any unusual aura in your body, was to ascertain if you could detect the profound Yin-Chi entering your body this time around. Yiqing Luo's expression gradually turned grave. After the last time he lost control, she didn't sense any trace of mysterious Yin-Chi in her body. He couldn't even sense the slightest bit of mysterious Yin-Chi. It was the same this time. What was going on? Where on earth was the profound Yin-Chi hiding, to be able to appear and disappear so mysteriously? Lil Luo, remove the god relic. Before we find out the reason, don't forcefully activate the profound Qi in your body. DMO, Xin solemnly locked onto Yiqing Luo's wrist. His gaze was fixed on the azure aqua ring on Yiqing Luo's fingertip. Today's matter, I guarantee it will not happen again. He raised his hand and his slender fingers gently caressed Yiqing Luo's fingers. His fingers hooked and removed the azure aqua ring from her fingertip. On your hand, as long as I leave this ring, that's enough. He held her hand and brought it to his lips. Chapter 1479. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips tightly. Her heart was extremely complicated. Why? How could the profound Yin-Chi be hidden so strangely? Moreover, it would appear when she activated the power of the god relic to increase her own strength. And she didn't notice it at all. Towards the profound Yin-Chi, she was extremely sensitive. Like Shangguan Liuli, Yiqing Qian, and the others. After they made a deal with the dark forces, she could clearly sense the profound Yin-Chi on them. But when it came to herself, she couldn't sense anything strange at all. What on earth was going on? The profound Yin-Chi, which had been pestering her and trying to control her, where was it hiding? All right, stop thinking about it. DMO Xian's warm, large palm covered the back of her head, forcing her head to lean against his chest. This god relic, I'll temporarily keep it safe for you. As for the matter regarding the profound Yin-Chi in your body, I'll investigate clearly. Absorbing the man's elegant aura, Yiqing Luo's heart felt as though it was wrapped in a hot spring, extremely at ease. She closed her eyes and nodded in his arms, and she stretched out her arms and circled around his firm waist. On the other side, Kitty Lee's face was flushed red. A pair of lively, beautiful eyes stared fiercely at the young man in front of her. You're still not going to move aside. Zomo's arm was around Kitty Lee's waist. A pair of devilish phoenix eyes rose slightly. As he leaned forward a few inches, his warm breath sprayed onto Kitty Lee's tender cheeks. Are you sure? You want me to move aside? That scorching breath made Kitty Lee extremely uncomfortable. Especially that face that was as handsome as a god. It made Kitty Lee's little heart beat uncontrollably. Yes, yes, yes. Kitty Lee blushed, both hands propped on Zomo's chest. Men and women should not touch each other. Your hand. On my body. You have to take responsibility. Zomo's lips curled as he gave a devilish smile. Then I'll take responsibility. You. Kitty Lee's eyes suddenly widened as she flew into a rage out of humiliation, opened her mouth, and bit Zomo's nose as she mumbled incoherently. Who wants you to take responsibility? You frivolous, hedonistic son. Kitty Lee doesn't want you to take responsibility. This. Zomo gasped in pain. Only then did Kitty Lee let go of his nose. Staring at him with her beautiful round eyes, she pretended to be fierce and snorted. Let's see if you still dare to bully Kitty. Kitty will bite you to death. Zomo touched his nose and could clearly feel a bite mark on the tip of his finger. It really is a little wildcat. Zomo narrowed his almond-shaped eyes, revealing an evil aura. The fiercer and more difficult to train a wildcat, the more interested I am. His rosy red lips curled into a charming and seductive arc. Kitty Lee's chest tightened, and her cheeks felt even hotter. Suddenly, Zomo's slender fingers clasped her head. A refreshing bamboo fragrance wafted into his nose. Her lips were forcefully sealed by him. Kitty Lee widened her eyes and struggled, trying to push Zomo away. However, that seemingly slender body was still in a daze. His strength was so great that she couldn't move him at all. Now, Do you still want me to let go? A seductive voice sounded beside her slightly swaying black cat ears. Kitty Lee couldn't help but shake her ears. He actually. Kitty Lee's cheeks turned red, and her embarrassment turned into anger. She was so angry that her eyes turned red. In the cat clan, if a man touched a woman's body, she would have to marry the man. Not to mention, being treated so intimately by a man. Chapter 1480. Frivolous Man. Let go of Kitty. Kitty Lee's reddened eyes stared fiercely at the man in front of her. This was simply infuriating. She wanted to use her sharp teeth to bite this man to death. All right, as you wish. Zoemo didn't insist, as his lips curled into a smile, which didn't look like a smile. He had just finished his words when he released the hand which was encircling Kitty Lee's waist. Kitty Lee, who lost the support of Zoemo's strength, felt her legs wobbling. His whole body fell backwards. She was injured by the Imperial Palace's granny and used her own blood to sign a life and death contract with Yiqing Luo. Kitty Lee didn't have any bit of energy to stand firmly. Just as Kitty Lee shut her eyes tightly, thinking that she would fall heavily onto the ground, a strong arm crossed her waist. He easily caught hold of her body. Once again, she fell into that broad and warm embrace. Above her head, Zoemo's hoarse laughter was heard. Little wildcat, you can't even stand properly without me. Do you still want me to let you go? Kitty Lee's ears shook sensitively as she raised her head and stared angrily at him. Meeting his teasing gaze, Kitty Lee bit her lower lip as she gave a cold harumph and shifted her gaze away, not saying a word. Zoemo laughed even more joyfully. His chest was heaving up and down from his laughter. His large palm covered Kitty Lee's head as he gently rubbed her pointy ears. Kitty Lee's ears shook even more violently. That slender fingers brushed past her ears lightly. This touch was totally different from Yiqing Luo's touch. When Yiqing Luo touched her head, Kitty Lee was filled with satisfaction. And when Zoemo touched her head, she inexplicably felt her face turning red, as though her most shameful thing was touched by him. Her heart, like a drum, rumbled loudly. Suddenly, Kitty Lee's legs felt light. She was hugged by Zoemo's waist. Subconsciously, her arms wrapped tightly around Zoemo's neck to maintain her balance. That's good. Zoemo smiled with his eyes curved. His tone was filled with adoration, as though he was praising his own pet. Kitty Lee's cheeks turned red as she clenched her teeth fiercely. Thinking that she could not stand, she forcefully resisted the urge to pinch his neck with her claws. Kitty Lee snorted coldly from her nostrils as she looked at Zoemo's smug face. Then, she lowered her head and no longer spoke to him. Zoemo laughed even more happily. That devilishly charming face was like that of a deity, handsome enough to topple cities. Because of this battle, everything within a radius of 100 miles of the Flame Nest headquarters had become a barren wasteland. Instructor Luo and Instructor Lee looked at Zoemo, who was laughing happily and teasing the little girl in his arms, and then looked at Gue Wu, who was standing not far away, thinking about something. Following that, his gaze fell onto Yiqing Luo and Di Emotion. Their gazes towards Yiqing Luo were filled with shock and astonishment. It was hard to believe that this desolate wasteland was actually created by such a little girl. Not long ago, all the students had arrived at the wooden shed. There were no more beds left. Lunch was over. It was time to rest. The students of the Devil class had returned, but there were 2 people missing. When they asked the Devil class students, no one answered their questions. Even after 1 hour of rest time, Yiqing Luo had yet to return. Devil class's class monitor couldn't sit still as he disregarded the instructor's orders and forcefully headed towards the vicinity of the Flame Nest to search for Yiqing Luo's traces. Just at this moment, the entire Flame Nest shook, and there was an obvious fluctuation of profound qi not too far away. And the imposing manner was extremely terrifying, definitely not the profound qi which ordinary cultivators could release. Gue Wu recalled the barrier which was touched not long ago, and that black cat's tail. Chapter 1481. Accompanying them were a few students from the devil class. It was also because of those students that they managed to contact Kitty Lee with the mercenary group badge. Only the few of them could rush over in time. Yi Ching Luo. Instructor Luo was stunned for some time and finally found his voice. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and looked at Yi Ching Luo. Earlier that person. And you. When Yi Ching Luo heard Instructor Luo's voice, she popped her head out from Dmo Xian's arms. It's just an old friend who had a little argument. It's fine. She curled her lips and revealed a faint smile. Fortunately, Master Gui Wu and the instructors arrived in time. An old friend? Just a dispute? Would a simple dispute flatten the interior of the fire layer and turn it into ruins? The two instructors looked at each other and suddenly felt that this student's identity was not simple. No wonder the usually cold and emotionless Master Ghost Marshal would personally come over to look for Yi Ching Luo after he sensed this powerful, profound qi fluctuation. Seeing that Yi Ching Luo didn't want to explain further, Instructor Luo didn't ask any more questions. Ching Luo. Long Yunjian speedily dashed in front of Yi Ching Luo as he raised his hand, trying to support Yi Ching Luo's shoulder to check on her injuries. But the moment he raised his hand, he thought of Dmo Xian. His hand stiffened, and he immediately retracted it. Are you all right? Yi Ching Luo was just about to open her mouth when her waist suddenly tightened. Dmo Xian's long arms tightened, as though he was making a declaration, as he used all his strength to rub Yi Ching Luo into his embrace. He looked up with his peach blossom eyes, his thin lips slightly raised. I will take good care of Lil Luo. Long Yunjian was stunned on the spot as his azure blue eyes shifted from Dmo Xian to the young lady nestled in Dmo Xian's arms, and he slowly lowered his eyes, not saying a single word. Yin Xiao Yi and Tong Ziqing followed closely behind, and when they saw Yi Ching Luo's clothes, which were stained with blood, their hearts ached. The two of them didn't care that Yi Ching Luo was still being hugged tightly by Dmo Xian. One by one side, they held onto Yi Ching Luo's palm as they softly comforted Yi Ching Luo in a choked-up voice. Their faces were filled with unconcealable concern. Looking at the trio's worried faces, Yi Ching Luo's expression turned gentle. She struggled for a few times and got out of Dmo Xian's embrace. Don't worry, I'm fine. It's just some superficial wounds. I'll be able to jump around after a few days of rest. Yi Ching Luo lowered her head and looked at her messy self. He engaged in a chase with the Imperial Palace's granny. Then, he endured another attack from wind chimes. The injuries on her body could be considered serious. It just so happened that she used the power of the divine weapon and profound jade heart to increase her profound rank. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth flowed through his limbs and every pore in his body. His internal injuries had also been healed. The current Yi Ching Luo, indeed, only had some superficial injuries. What are you thinking? Why did you suddenly come here alone and get hurt by that old woman? Yin Xiao furrowed her brows, looking extremely displeased. What's the matter? Can't you tell everyone and solve it together? Tong Ziqing's expression was gloomy as she breathed out cold air from her nose. I think you totally don't treat us as brothers. What kind of matters do you take on by yourself without saying a word? Where do you put us? Or do you find it interesting to see us searching for you like crazy, worrying about you and running around for you? Zi Qing. Long Yunjian berated harshly. Chapter 1482. Tong Ziqing was cold on the outside, but warm on the inside. She had a sharp tongue, but a soft heart. She was exasperated. Yi Ching Luo's charming eyes were filled with a gentle smile. She stretched out her hand and wrapped it around Tong Ziqing's slender shoulders as her lips curled into an arc. Ziqing, I'm sorry to have made you worry. Tong Ziqing gave a cold harumph. She was still arrogant and didn't return Yi Ching Luo's hug. But her body gradually softened. This is one of the 4 sacred beasts. White tiger's sacred beast. Suddenly, a panicked voice sounded, filled with shock and astonishment. The few of them looked over. They saw Instructor Luo and Instructor Li standing by Chi-Chi's side as they raised their heads and met Chi-Chi's tiger eyes in disbelief. Chi-Chi tilted its head and blinked its huge tiger eyes, acting cute as it greeted them in a friendly manner. This fox beast was obviously several times bigger than ordinary tiger beasts. Tilting its head, blinking its eyes, and giving out a low howl. The 2 instructors' legs instantly went soft as they supported each other to barely stand on their feet. They had heard of it before. Beside Yi-Ching Luo, there was a legendary divine dragon and a white tiger sacred beast. Now that they had seen it with their own eyes, the 2 instructors felt extremely shocked. Yi-Ching Luo took a look at Chi-Chi, and her gaze fell onto the ground, on Wind, who was lying down powerlessly with his eyes blank. Ah Xian, Wind. Yi-Ching Luo had just done a simple treatment for Wind, as his injuries were too serious. Presumably, Imperial Palace's granny had followed Wind's presence to the flame nest and caught hold of Wind to inquire about her whereabouts. After that, she used torture to force Wind. But Wind didn't reveal her whereabouts. That was why the Imperial Palace's granny called Ah Feng a disloyal dog. As one of the 4 great guardians of the Imperial Palace, he isn't that weak. Demo Xian held her shoulders as he comforted her. I will bring him back to the Imperial Palace for treatment. Sorry, I couldn't protect him. Yi-Ching Luo could tell that Wind had a certain status in Demo Xian's heart. She had heard Demo Xian mention this before. Wind had been selected by the Imperial Palace's granny as a secret guard since young, to secretly protect Demo Xian. Demo Xian was already used to Wind's existence. The affection between them. They were like master and servant, but they were better than master and servant. It was also because of her that Ah Feng was so seriously injured. I was the one who sent him to protect you in the first place. Demo Xian's slender fingers curled up slightly. The distinct joints of his knuckles knocked hard on Yi-Ching Luo's forehead. He wasn't able to protect you, and even dragged you into danger to suffer for him. Demo Xian's voice suddenly turned gloomy. After Ah Feng recovers, he must accept severe punishment. Ah Xian. Yi-Ching Luo rubbed her forehead in pain. Before Ah Feng could speak, Ah Feng's extremely weak voice softly sounded. This subordinate is willing to accept punishment. This subordinate is incompetent and failed to protect ye. He paused. Ah Feng's face contorted in pain from speaking. He took a deep breath and continued. It's my fault for failing to protect the mistress of the Imperial Palace. I must accept my punishment. Mistress of the Imperial Palace? This form of address made Yi-Ching Luo's cheeks burn slightly. This form of address, she had only heard Tang Beiyuan call her in this way. She had not expected Ah Feng, who didn't want to admit that she was worthy of Demo Xian, would automatically call out this form of address, which meant Chapter 1483. Wind struggled to get up as he knelt down in the direction of Demo Xian and Yi-Ching Luo. Yes, he was completely convinced by Yi-Ching Luo. Before this, Wind had some opinions about Yi-Ching Luo. Hence, no matter how he looked at her, he felt that she had ulterior motives. Later on, he found out that his thoughts were too dirty, and he gradually accepted Yi-Ching Luo's existence. But he didn't feel that Yi-Ching Luo was the kind of lady who could stay by Demo Xian's side, standing side by side with him. But now, he was convinced, because he was Demo Xian's man, when he knew that he might be in danger. She was fearless of everything and entered into danger to search for him and save him. She was willing to become a human target for Feng Ling's attacks, to save him when he was under control. Under the instigation of the Imperial Palace's granny, Yi-Ching Luo chose to trust him unreservedly. She said that she was here to search for him. He said that no matter what, she would bring him away. At that moment, Win's heart was moved. Win knew that Yi-Ching Luo's actions were not because of him, but because he was sent by the Overlord to stay by her side. Yi Qing Luo was willing to give it her all for the Overlord. Wind had to admit, this audacious, extremely arrogant, and extremely unique woman. Indeed, she loved the Overlord wholeheartedly. He couldn't deny it. This lady was the most suitable lady for the Overlord. She was the mistress of the Imperial Palace. Dmo Xian's long peach blossom eyes squinted slightly. He looked at a Feng, who was kneeling on the ground, and said calmly, "I will punish you." Following that, he said, "Bei Yuan." His voice had just ended when a slender figure appeared out of thin air in front of everyone. The lady was as beautiful as a flower, dressed in a lotus green soft silk dress with dark flower patterns embroidered on the sleeves. When she walked, it was as if smoke was floating in spirals, like a dream or fantasy. "Overlord," the lady knelt down on one knee. "Bring Wind back to the Imperial Palace and replace Wind's position." Dmo Xian pointed at Wind. Tang Beiyuan was stunned as a sliver of hesitation surfaced on her beautiful face. "Overlord, he would take over Wind's position," which meant that she had to leave the Imperial Palace to secretly protect Yi Qing Luo. Beiyuan. Dmo Xian could see the struggle in Tang Beiyuan's eyes as he sighed softly. "Leaving the Imperial Palace for a period of time might be good for both of you, but there's also a possibility that many things will change." Tang Beiyuan remained silent for a long time. That elegant and beautiful face was filled with a melancholy that made one feel pity for her. Dmo Xian did not press her for an immediate answer. Yi Qing Luo's gaze lingered between the both of them. "Why does it feel like a little weird? What was the relationship between Dmo Xian and Tang Beiyuan? Why did it look like he didn't seem like an ordinary subordinate?" Ever since the last time they met, Yi Qing Luo felt the relationship between the two of them was much closer than that of a subordinate. If it wasn't for the fact that he could tell that Tang Beiyuan was deeply in love with her fiancé, she would definitely be jealous. Perhaps it was because of Yi Qing Luo's gaze his hair stood on end. Tang Beiyuan regained her senses from her deep thoughts as she raised her eyes and looked at Dmo Xian. "I will obey Overlord's arrangements." Following that, she stood up agilely and directly carried Wind, leaving without saying a word. Chapter 1484. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose slightly. She raised her hand and held Dmo Xian's hand with a questioning look. "Tell me honestly, what are you and Miss Tang talking about?" Dmo Xian's peach blossom eyes flickered slightly, as if an ink painting was spreading in his deep eyes. Yi Qing Luo was almost bewitched by this pair of eyes. His thin lips curled into an extremely seductive smile, exuding a fatal temptation. "Are you jealous?" His husky voice was filled with magnetism, like a feather tickling her heart. Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly seemed to have been hit hard as it started to palpitate. Her cheeks blushed slightly as she stared angrily at Dmo Xian. "You're breaking the rules." Flirting with her after a disagreement. She was obviously questioning him about his relationship with Tang Beiyuan. He actually flirted with her. Was he trying to change the topic? Was he feeling guilty? Thinking of this, the resentment in Yi Qing Luo's eyes deepened. "Don't try to change the topic. Be obedient and tell me clearly." Dmo Xian caught her little hand, which was poking his chest, and hugged her tightly. "Beiyuan's fiancé is one of my guardians." Yi Qing Luo raised her brows, and "The duty of a guardian is to listen to my orders unconditionally." You've seen Wind, right? Northyan's guardian is even more slow-witted than Wind. Dmo Xian looked at that delicate little face, waiting for his explanation. He couldn't help but stretched out his fingers and pinched her cheek. Yi Qing Luo covered her face in pain. "What do you mean by what you said earlier? Falling in love with a guardian is destined to be an incomplete relationship." Dmo Xian sighed faintly. "Because between them, I and the Imperial Palace will be the main." Yi Qing Luo's struggling and coquettish action stopped. She bit by bit, whittling away Dmo Xian's words. Suddenly, as if she finally understood, Wai Tang Biyuan's eyes always surfaced a touch of melancholy. Why Tang Biyuan's back view looked so lonely. And when she saw DMO Xian and her sticking to each other, Tang Beiyuan would subconsciously look at them with an envious gaze. She obviously had a fiancé and loved her fiancé deeply. But he was so envious of other people's love, because Tang Beiyuan's love was destined to be incomplete. What women wanted was a single-minded love. She wanted the man she loved to put her first. But Tang Beiyuan's fiancé couldn't do it. Between DMO Xian and Tang Beiyuan, her fiancé would definitely choose DMO Xian. Between the Arch Palace and Tang Beiyuan, her fiancé would definitely choose the Arch Palace. Even though Tang Beiyuan knew that this was their destiny and their duty, she couldn't help it. But time and time again, she was abandoned by the man she loved deeply. No matter how strong a heart was, it would still shatter into pieces. So, I think the two of them should separate for a period of time to calm down and let Xian think clearly about what Beiyuan is to him. DMO Xian lifted her chin, his eyes filled with tenderness and honey. If it was in the past, before I met you, I definitely wouldn't have the leisure to care about my subordinates' matters. His shimmering peach blossom eyes shone with a bright luster. But after I met you, I understood the feeling of loving someone and understood the happiness of being together with a lover. DMO Xian held her little hand and placed it by his lips as though it was a fragile treasure, as he carefully planted a kiss on it. Lil Luo, the only person who can change me is you. Their four eyes met, and there was complete silence. DMO Xian's sudden confession made Yiqing Luo's face flushed red. In her enchanting eyes, that peerless face of unparalleled elegance gradually enlarged. Chapter 1485. Cough, cough, cough. A dry cough was heard, continuously coughing, interrupting their tender feelings. Yiqing Luo immediately opened her eyes and looked towards the direction of the sound, only to see Gue Wu standing by the side with a gloomy face. And Zoemo was also carrying Kitty Li, standing by Gue Wu's side. Zoemo was the one who had coughed earlier. Gue Wu Master. Instructor Zo. In front of these seniors wantonly showing off their affection and whatnot, it was quite embarrassing to think about it. Yiqing Luo quietly raised her eyes and stared at DMO Xian resentfully. It was all his fault. He flirted with her without saying a word, and he even flirted with her more and more skillfully, causing her pink bubbles to swell up, forgetting that there were other people around. Gue Wu's gaze only lightly swept past DMO Xian. The expression on his face was still as cold as ice. This gaze, this invisible aura that emanated from it, it really made Yiqing Luo's back turn cold. She rubbed the goosebumps on her arm. Gue Wu Master, if you have anything to say, please say it directly, this creepy gaze. I will have nightmares. Gue Wu coldly glanced at her. Student Yiqing Luo, you have seriously violated the team's rules, disobeyed the instructor's orders, and even created such a big commotion, affecting the other students' training. Don't you have anything to say? His questions came one after another, each more forceful than the last. Wu, Zoemo called out, stopping Gue Wu. Forget it. Look at Yiqing Luo's body. There are so many wounds for the sake of the Overlord. Just let it go. Overlord? Hearing this name, Instructor Luo and Instructor Li's gaze immediately shifted from Muqiqi to her. And when they heard these four words, Gue Wu's brows also twitched a few times. The few of them fixed their sights on Yiqing Luo's side, on that tall figure with an imposing appearance, emitting a majestic aura from a man. Purple robe billowed, peerless. This was the legendary figure in the Nirvana realm. Overlord, DMO Xian. The two instructors were completely stunned. From the moment they rushed here, they had already noticed this dazzling man. Only, seeing how close Yiqing Luo and DMO Xian were, anyone with a discerning eye could see their relationship. Naturally, he would not take the initiative to ask about Dmo Xian's identity. Then, their attention was focused on Chi-Chi. Unexpectedly, this man was the overlord. My training must be carried out according to my rules. Gui Wu shot a glance at Dmo Xian as he coldly said, "If you're wrong, then you should accept the punishment. I believe the overlord wouldn't have any objections, right?" Dmo Xian frowned slightly. The ghost martial artist had an obvious hostility towards him. He didn't know where this hostility came from. Before he could open his mouth, the young girl in his embrace had already raised her eyes to meet Gui Wu's. Resolutely and indifferently, she said, "What Master Gui Wu said is correct. I'm the one who broke the rules of the group and delayed everyone's special training. I should accept my punishment." Gui Wu coldly snorted before turning around and walking in the direction of the exit. That youthful, immature face did not look out of place at all. Zhou Mo promptly hugged the person in his arms and followed the footsteps of Gui Wu. "Xian, I have to go back first." Yiqing Luo snuggled back into Dmo Xian's arms, raised her eyes, and stared deeply at Dmo Xian's face. "You..." Chapter 1486. Because of her, Dmo Xian had quarreled with the Imperial Palace's old granny until both parties were unhappy. She didn't know if the Imperial Palace's old granny would do anything that would harm Dmo Xian's interests. At this moment, Dmo Xian had to rush back to the Imperial Palace to take charge. Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo resisted the urge to ask Dmo Xian to stay. Her charming eyes curved into a narrow arc. "Xian, I'll leave with the instructors first." Saying that, she loosened her arms around Dmo Xian's waist. Dmo Xian suddenly stretched out his hand and pressed her arm. "We haven't seen each other for so long. Don't you miss me? Think. How about you not think about it? As the saying goes, a day apart feels like 3 years." She and Dmo Xian had not seen each other for a few days. Moreover, every time they met, they couldn't stay close to each other for a while and had to separate. He had matters to deal with in the Imperial Palace. She, on the other hand, had to work hard to grow and create better opportunities for herself and her brothers. "I miss you. I miss you so much." Yiqing Luo concealed the shyness in her heart. Her eyes were sincere as she gazed at the man's face. "But no matter how I think, now is not the time to be willful." She once again took the initiative to hug him tightly. She threw herself completely into Dmo Xian's arms. "Xian, I don't want to be your burden." Yiqing Luo's voice in his arms sounded dull. Dmo Xuanhuan hugged her tightly. "You've never been my burden. The reason why something like this happened today, and why the Imperial Palace's granny came to find me, is because I'm not strong enough to make her recognize me as the woman worthy of you. If I can travel alongside you, I can have a background that can rival yours. No matter how much the old woman in the Imperial Palace loves wind chimes, she will definitely not attack me, and she will not let you sink into the problem between me and the old woman." Yiqing Luo slowly shook her head. Yiqing Luo could never forget it. When Dmo Xian looked at the Imperial Palace's old grandma, his eyes were filled with sorrow and disappointment. She did not want to put Dmo Xian in a difficult position, but it still made Dmo Xian break off relations with the Imperial Palace's old granny because of her. To Dmo Xian, the Imperial Palace's granny, who had brought him up, was equivalent to an elder. If you put yourself in his shoes, if it was Long Yunzhan or Yin Shao Yi or the other brothers who hurt Dmo Xian, and could she, for Dmo Xian, break off all relations with her brothers? Just thinking about it, Yiqing Luo could feel the pain and hesitation mixed within. Dmo Xian did not hesitate to stand on her side and spoke out to defend her. He even gave the Imperial Palace's old granny a warning. This was the depth of his love for her. How could he be so decisive and without hesitation? Lil Luo Dmo Xian sighed softly. "You're always able to see through what I'm thinking about with just one look." Yiqing Luo smiled as she looked at him. "Xian, I will always be thinking of you. DMO, Xian's glimmering peach blossom eyes were filled with traces of sentiments. He held Yi Qing Luo tightly as he gently planted a kiss on her lips. Yi Qing Luo closed her eyes as a tranquil smile appeared on her face. Whoosh, who are you? Suddenly, there was a faint sound of something tearing through the air. She heard Gui Wu and Zhou Mo's vigilant voices suddenly rang. Their lips had just touched for a few breaths' time when the two of them immediately separated and looked towards the direction of the sound. Raising their eyes, they saw a figure flying over. Yi Qing Luo only had time to see an afterimage floating past. But in an instant, it had already stopped not too far away from Yi Qing Luo. A crimson luxurious robe, like a fire phoenix descending. His jet-black long hair was held in place by a wooden hairpin, extremely casual. That cold and hard face, that sharp gaze, seemed to be sealed in eyes for thousands of miles. The minute Yi Qing Luo met that pair of eyes, she felt a gush of cold air rising from her heart. Chapter 1487. Zhu Wuxian. Why was he here? This was the Blaze Lair. His motive for coming here was because of the so-called divine object? Or, for her, recalling the past, Zhu Wuxian had always treated her as the person he knew, and tried all sorts of ways to probe her. Yi Qing Luo felt that. The reason why Zhu Wuxian would appear here, it might be the latter. When DMO Xian saw Zhu Wuxian, his expression sunk. The pair of smiling eyes suddenly released an extremely cold chill at this moment. At this moment, his entire being gave off an arrogant and valiant aura. He tightened his grip around Yi Qing Luo's waist as his icy cold peach blossom eyes looked coldly at Zhu Wuxian. I'd not expected the rumors of the Blaze Lair to be so alluring that even Death God Castle's Castle Lord has come personally. Zhu Wuxian ignored DMO Xian's words. His gaze fell onto the arm on Yi Qing Luo's waist without blinking. That alluring crimson robe was unable to conceal the chilly air that he was emitting. DMO Xian tightened his grip. Yi Qing Luo nestled in DMO Xian's arms, and it could be said that the two men's gazes intersected. She could even clearly see the sparks from the two men's eyes. It crackled and flickered with electricity. Why was the scene a little strange? The fortunate thing was, Gui Wu brought General Luo and Instructor Li over. When the two instructors heard the way DMO Xian addressed Zhu Wuxian, their faces were filled with astonishment as they looked at Zhu Wuxian in shock. Even Instructor Li, who had always had a fiery temper and was extremely impatient towards everything, was unable to calm his agitated little heart at this moment. Death God Castle's Castle Lord. Instructor Luo took a few huge steps and returned to Yi Qing Luo's side as he stared at Zhu Wuxian and sized him up. I know your name. Master Gui Wu had mentioned you before. Instructor Luo wasn't affected by the chilly air that was emitted from Zhu Wuxian as he was still in high spirits. Little Luo, Gui Wu's icy cold voice called out to the agitated Instructor Luo. Instructor Luo then reacted as he rubbed his head and laughed awkwardly. Young Master Zhu, I'm so sorry. I'm a burly man, and when I saw someone who was praised by Master Gui Wu, I got excited. Zhu Wuxian took some time before he slowly shifted his gaze onto Instructor Luo. That extraordinarily handsome face was so beautiful that it was intoxicating. However, the cold aura emitted from those eyes still made people shudder. General Luo's smile froze. His hand that was rubbing his head also froze. Just when everyone thought that Zhu Wuxian wouldn't speak, they heard his cold voice ring out. It's fine. Instructor Luo's eyes widened and his jaw dropped. Didn't they all say this Death God Castle Lord was especially hard to approach? No matter who spoke to him, it was an honor to be able to reply to him once out of 10 sentences. He actually responded to her. Instructor Luo stood rooted to the ground, unable to come back to his senses. Yi Qing Luo secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Instructor Luo was there. Only then did the strange atmosphere dissipate. For some reason, DMO Xian and Chu Wu Xin were facing off. There was an inexplicable feeling that they were going to fight each other at any moment. Thinking of the way Zhu Wuxin looked at her, repeating it over and over again, she forgot about his persistence. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but shiver. It was better to maintain a distance from Zhu Wuxin, but it was too early for Yiqing Luo to be assured. Chapter 1488. Yiqing Luo's head was filled with question marks. What on earth was going on? Why did it sound like there was a feeling of jealousy? Was it a misperception? Instructor Luo was apparently stunned by DMO Xian's words. After some time, he stuttered as he shook his head. Of course not. Overlord is the #1 strongest person in Nirvana realm. Of course I'm excited to see you. Overlord's charm is naturally unparalleled. Before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by a chilly voice. Instructor Luo is saying that I'm not as good as him? Instructor Luo's face immediately turned pale. He looked at the both of them with a tearless face. Could he apply to shut his mouth? At this moment, no matter how slow the person was, he could clearly feel. The undercurrent between Chu Wu Xin and DMO Xian was surging violently. Instructor Luo was extremely regretful. Why couldn't he keep his composure and had to rush up to be implicated? Death God Castle's Castle Lord, are you threatening him and going against your conscience? DMO Xian squinted his eyes as his lips curled in ridicule. Isn't the Overlord using his own status to force Instructor Luo to praise you? Zhu Wuxian refused to be outdone as his cold voice was like thin ice. For pairs of eyes met, and once again, it set off a crackling current. Instructor Luo looked left and right. He discovered that the both of them were staring at each other, with no intention of shifting their eyes away. He shrunk his neck as he retreated step by step towards Ghost Marshall's direction. He hadn't even taken a step. He saw the both of them turning their heads at the same time as they stared at Instructor Luo. Instructor Luo, what you said earlier, is it from the bottom of your heart? They spoke almost at the same time. That majestic aura wrapped Instructor Luo into a ball. Instructor Luo's legs turned into jelly as he retreated several steps before he managed to stabilize himself. What are the both of you doing? Instructor Luo didn't offend you. Yiqing Luo, who couldn't take it anymore, immediately stretched out her hand and grabbed DMO Xian's arm as she pulled him to her side. Following that, she spoke to Instructor Luo. Instructor Luo, don't bother about these two. Let them continue looking at each other with tender feelings. You guys leave first, I'll rush over immediately. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, Instructor Luo immediately retracted his body and dashed towards Ghost Marshall's direction as though he was escaping. The aura of these two young men. His old bones really couldn't take it anymore. And when the four eyes met, the two of them who were releasing electric current heard Yiqing Luo's adjectives. The two expressionless faces twitched a few times at the same time. Affectionate? What the hell? Since when were they so affectionate? Weren't they very handsome, cool, and crazy, using their own auras to suppress their opponents? Why was it that in Yiqing Luo's eyes, it became filled with tender feelings? This phrase successfully made the two men avert their gazes. No one was willing to exchange glances with the other. Yiqing Luo suddenly felt tired as she tugged DMO Xian's arm. That young Master Zhu should have something important to do in the blazing flame nest, so we'll make a move first. As he spoke, he turned around to leave. However, before she could take a step, Zhu Wuxian's figure flashed as he stood in front of Yiqing Luo. His icy cold gaze stared coldly at Yiqing Luo and DMO Xian's interlocked hands as his gaze turned gloomy. I indeed have something important to do. Then, Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased. Zhu Wuxian's gaze made her inexplicably annoyed. Somehow it felt as though a husband who had caught his wife together with another man's gaze. Yiqing Luo suppressed the unhappiness in her heart as she stabilized her state of mind. Then we shall not disturb young Master Zhu. Please move aside. Chapter 1489. Zhu Wuxin's cold voice enunciated each word clearly. The pair of frosty gaze was like a sharp knife, slicing Yiqing Luo's body. This tone, this expression, no matter how he looked at it, it didn't seem like it was a romantic statement. However, when it came to Zhu Wuxin, these were indeed words of love. Yiqing Luo's face immediately turned pale. Subconsciously, he raised his head to look at Dimo Xian's expression. But he saw Dimo Xian's expression was calm as he lifted his eyelids in a carefree manner. His lips twitched disapprovingly. Young Master Zhu, taking liberties with this lord's woman in front of this lord. Are you declaring war with this lord? Yes. His voice was calm and emotionless. That one word stirred up thousands of waves. Even Instructor Luo and the others who were watching from the side could not help but gasp. The gazes they shot towards Yiqing Luo were no longer simple shock and astonishment. It was an unconcealable admiration. This girl, he actually made Lord Di Zun and the Death God Castle's Castle Master fight against each other. He even declared war in public. Femme fatale. Femme fatale. What a pity. Lil Luo, is destined to only be this lord's woman. Dmo Xian's gaze suddenly turned cold as his long arm pulled Yiqing Luo into his embrace. You have no chance. Zhu Wuxin's usually calm eyes finally showed a trace of change. His eyes flickered a few times. The man is unmarried. The woman is unmarried. I naturally have a chance. What's more, if she remembers me, the one who doesn't have a chance is you. The expression on Dmo Xian's face was still that calm. He had an expression that said, no matter what you say, Lil Luo is my woman. But Yiqing Luo could feel it. Dmo Xian at this moment. Because of Zhu Wuxin's words, his heart surged like raging waves. Especially when Dmo Xian glanced at her from the corner of his eye, it made Yiqing Luo's back shiver. She nestled in his arms. Her small hands kept caressing his chest. She really wanted to shout out that she was innocent. She didn't remember any past between her and Zhu Wuxian. Zhu Wuxin's words made it sound as if she had once had some unforgettable love with him. After all, she was only 15 years old. Her memory became clearer when she was about 3 or 4 years old. In his memories, he was absolutely certain that there was no such person as Zhu Wuxin. Could it be that they had met before they were 3 or 4 years old? When they were so young, who could remember it? Cough, cough, cough. The atmosphere between these two people was so tense that the air was about to condense into ice. As the main character of the confrontation, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but let out a dry cough to break the silence. That, young Master Zhu, I think you've recognized the wrong person. I'm really not the person you're looking for. Yiqing Luo looked at Zhu Wuxian and said, You are, Zhu Wuxian said confidently. No one knew where he got his confidence from. Yiqing Luo replied helplessly, I've never lost my memories. I remember everything that happened in the past 10 years clearly. Zhu Wuxin remained silent, only using that pair of sharp eyes. He stared at Yiqing Luo without blinking. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath and suppressed the irritation in her heart. Zhu Wuxin's strength was unfathomable. She might not be Zhu Wuxin's match. Moreover, if she fought with Zhu Wuxin probably wouldn't retaliate. If Dmo Xian saw this, he would probably assume that she and Zhu Wuxin had a female relationship. Dmo Xian looked at Yiqing Luo's expression as his eyes turned slightly chilly. Suddenly, he hooked the young lady in his arms and tipped his toes, bringing Yiqing Luo along as they floated in midair. Chapter 1490. Xian. Yiqing Luo felt that the profound qi on Dmo Xian's body continued to surge. Dmo Xian lowered his eyes and took a look at her. The moment he looked at Yiqing Luo, His gaze was filled with adoration. He curled his lips and said softly, "Don't worry, it'll be over soon." After saying that, he raised his eyes, and his gaze shot out like a sharp blade. The hurricane swirled up sand and gravel into the air. His jet-black hair fluttered on his shoulders as he bared his fangs and claws. Chu Wuxin also did not say a word and did not retreat even half a step. With a flick of his sleeve, a strong gust of wind blew against his loose crimson robe, causing it to flutter loudly. The two of them stood in midair, facing each other. A powerful wave of qi lingered around the two of them, spreading out wantonly. The hurricane didn't stop, and the airwaves were monstrous. The few people who were standing not far away were simply dumbfounded. It was too scary. The profound qi surrounding the two of them was like a whirlwind. Compared to the Xian qi that had rushed over after following the Xian qi fluctuation, it was even more terrifying. Fortunately, these two people were still somewhat rational. However, as the profound energy of both sides converged, the aura they released did not spread throughout the entire flame nest. Otherwise, they were afraid that they would not be able to stand here and watch. Is this the power of His Majesty? I'm so used to seeing him and Qing Luo being so lovey-dovey that I've almost forgotten that the Overlord is actually so strong. Yin Xiao raised her head and stared unblinkingly at the two people in midair, her eyes filled with astonishment. Tong Ziqing was also unable to maintain her cold elegance as her eyes were filled with astonishment. What's more frightening is that this Death God Castle's castle master is actually on par with the Overlord. With a pause, Tong Ziqing seemed to have thought of something. She immediately restrained the shock in her eyes and looked at Long Yunjian beside her. "Class leader," she called out to him softly. Long Yunjian didn't even blink as he stared at the two people in the air. The azure light in his eyes flickered. There seemed to be some complicated feelings that she could not understand. However, Tong Ziqing could see it. The veins on his forehead bulged. His whole body was taut with muscles. His hands clenched into fists. DMO Xian's power had deeply awed Long Yunjian. He felt inferior because he couldn't defeat Long Yunjian. Tong Ziqing's heart faintly throbbed with pain. He still loved Yi Qing Luo. Because he loved Yi Qing Luo, that was why he compared himself with DMO Xian. Class monitor, who do you think will win? Yin Xiao Yi, who didn't notice the strange atmosphere, was still excitedly discussing with Long Yunjian. There was no reply from Long Yunjian after a long while. Yin Xiao Yi ignored him and continued to stare at the two people who were exuding pressure in midair. TSK. Ah Wu, these two young people are really amazing. Zhou Mo clicked his tongue and looked at the two of them in amazement. Do they have the demeanor you had back then? You make it sound like you're very old. Kitty Li, who was in his arms, muttered. Zhou Mo looked down, his long and narrow phoenix eyes forming a demonic arc looking at the two black cat ears, which kept swaying on top of his head. He gave a low laugh as he bent down and leaned close to her ear as he laughed hoarsely. Little wildcat, whether I'm old or not, you can verify for yourself. Although Kitty Li didn't quite understand the hidden meaning in Zhou Mo's words, but her cat's intuition told her Zhou Mo was definitely up to no good. Kitty Li's eyes widened as she pretended to stare at him fiercely. Pooey, you frivolous man. Kitty Li doesn't care if you're old or not. Saying that, she snorted and turned her head away, not looking at him. Zhou Mo was pleased by her cute little gesture. Chapter 1491. I've been paying attention to this Zhu Wu X sign. Suddenly, Gue Wu's cold voice came from the side. It broke the atmosphere of Zhou Mo teasing Kitty Li. Zhou Mo raised his eyebrows. I know, his background is complicated. Our men can't find any information about him. He was a young man, but he was able to become the legendary Death God Castle's castle master who caused people to tremble in fear. Moreover, all the major forces in Nirvana realm were fawning on him. This young man was like a species that appeared out of thin air, an extremely mysterious existence. His mysteriousness was not inferior to the emotion. His aura is not inferior to that of a venerable sovereign. He is another abnormal monster. Zoemo looked at Gui Wu. Wu, if this goes on, the balance in the lower realm will be broken. The Emperor has not used his full strength. Gui Wu's malicious eyes swept past Zoemo and Kitty Li, who was snorting in his arms. Immediately, he gave Zoemo a warning stare. Zoemo gave a disapproving look. Little Wildcat doesn't seem to have a high IQ. She can't understand. You're the one with a low IQ. Your whole family has a low IQ. Kitty Lee retorted angrily, staring at him with her big round eyes. Her little hand clutched Zoemo's collar tightly. She looked like she wanted to rush up and bite him to death. Looking at Kitty Lee's adorable look, Zoemo couldn't help but burst out laughing. One of his hands couldn't help but pinch Kitty Lee's cheek. Kitty Lee let out a meow and couldn't help but grab Zoemo's hand and bite him. Gui Wu frowned as he watched the two of them playing around. His eyes became more and more solemn. After a while, seeing that Zoemo was still playing around, Gui Wu couldn't be bothered to wait for him. He walked straight towards the direction he came from. Zoemo hurriedly chased after him. Wu, don't be in such a hurry to leave. Aren't you curious about who will win? The two instructors who followed up immediately nodded. They expressed that a duel between two experts was a rare opportunity. They wanted to continue watching. He wanted to see who among these two great experts would be able to win the heart of the beauty. Gui Wu kept a straight face, his eyes gloomy and his voice cold. Not interested. Ayaya. Wu, don't be like this. Don't you want to investigate whether this Zhu Wuxin is bang, 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 boom, boom, boom? Suddenly, a deafening explosion interrupted Zoemo's words. The air of the entire flame nest seemed to have gathered a terrifying, profound energy fluctuation. It surged like the tide, recklessly colliding. Gui Wu's expression sunk as he immediately activated his barrier, enveloping the three students of the devil class as well as the instructors within. He looked up again. In midair, the two men who were originally competing with each other's aura had unknowingly become entangled with one another. The fiery red horizon was like a bloody mouth that had opened wide. One of them was glistening with purple light. His aura was like a rainbow. Mysterious light came one after another, carrying a sharp battle intent. One of them was dressed in blood-red robes. He was coquettish and cruel, and the profound energy he released was stronger than the previous one. Two streams of profound chi constantly clashed and collided. Sand and dust filled the sky, and hurricanes messed up everything in the surroundings. Yiqing Luo was firmly held in Mo Xian's arms. His strong and powerful arm had not loosened even for a moment. His tall body and broad chest protected her well in the confrontation between the two profound chis. She wasn't disturbed by any of the aura. The collision of the profound chi stirred up an intense hurricane. It blew the hair on Yiqing Luo's forehead. She raised her eyes and gazed at the calm and emotionless Mo Xian. That disdainful look, as though everything was in his palm. Chapter 1492. Zhu Wuxian's unapproachable face turned even colder. A pair of sharp, icy cold eyes stared at the young lady in Mo Xian's arms. The young lady didn't notice his gaze. The young lady's extremely bewitching eyes were filled with tenderness and unconcealable love. She looked at Mo Xian in a daze. Using that loving gaze, she looked at Mo Xian in a daze. Yiqing Luo's gaze deeply agitated Zhu Wuxian. Obviously, he was the first person to meet Yiqing Luo. Obviously, he was the man whom Yiqing Luo should love. The man whom Yiqing Luo looked at with that kind of gaze should be him. Zhu Wuxian's usually calm and unperturbed heart was surging with a surge of fury. That pair of icy cold eyes looked extremely malevolent and terrifying. A piercingly cold aura was unleashed continuously. The profound chi surged as the air billowed into the sky. The profound chi intertwined once again as sparks flew. Emotion. The icy cold voice had a tinge of hoarseness. She belongs to me. She belongs to me. Zhu Wu Xin spat out words which seemed like a demon spell. Inexplicably, there was an extremely strange feeling. DMO Xian scoffed in disdain. His sleeves moved slightly as a burst of powerful, profound qi was unleashed from his sleeves. The purple light was dazzling as it broke through the enchantment which Zhu Wu Xin had conjured and shot towards Zhu Wu Xin's face. Zhu Wu Xin reacted in time as he swiftly evaded it, but he still couldn't avoid being struck on the chest by that strike. Zhu Wu Xin gave a dull moan as he retreated a few steps. Yiqing Luo also heard Zhu Wu Xin's words as her brows creased as she spoke in a chilly voice. Young Master Zhu, the person whom you insist on believing might not be me. I admire young Master Zhu's persistence towards the woman you love, but this persistence, please don't place it on me. She had no memories of Zhu Wu Xin at all. Zhu Wu Xin was another man with a hole in his brain, pestering her and insisting that it was her, yet refusing to be reasonable. Yiqing Luo finally came to a conclusion. This Zhu Wu Xin, he was a lunatic. If it's not you, I'll kill you. Zhu Wu Xin's icy cold voice was filled with a biting, cold, murderous intent. Yiqing Luo didn't doubt that Zhu Wu Xin's words were just casually said. Once he was sure that she wasn't the person he was looking for, he would definitely kill her. He would not hesitate to kill her. Yiqing Luo's brows creased even tighter. Just as he was about to speak, Imo Xin beat him to it. Kill her? Do you think you have the ability? She is. Zhu Wu Xin stared at Yiqing Luo's face, stubborn and certain. It was very tiring to talk to such a person. Zhu Wuxin's stubbornness was already incurable. In Zhu Wuxin's view, his people should belong to him. If he had recognized the wrong Yiqing Luo, he would choose to kill this woman with his own hands, the woman he had saved multiple times because he had admitted his mistakes. However, Zhu Wuxin still insisted that he had not recognized the wrong person. His Yiqing Luo was this Yiqing Luo. He wanted Yiqing Luo to recall their past. If Yiqing Luo really couldn't recall, if he couldn't obtain it, then he would destroy it. This thought surfaced in his mind. A biting, cold, murderous intent flashed past Zhu Wu Xin's eyes. Zhu Wu Xin, this lord shall use action to tell you today that this lord's woman is not a woman you can dream of. Just as he finished his words, DMO Xian's entire body's energy suddenly soared. A terrifying, profound light shot directly towards Zhu Wu Xin's direction. Chapter 1493. The Overlord is getting serious. Gue Wu looked at the pressure being unleashed in the sky as his expression sunk slightly. Let's go. This isn't something we can interfere in. Zmo Xian remained calm and composed as he looked at Dmo Xian, who was dressed in a purple robe as his sleeves danced, looking as handsome as a god. He rubbed his chin as he gave a meaningful smile. Since ancient times, heroes have a weakness for the charms of a beauty. Bam! A loud sound was heard as Zhu Wu Xin's body fell from the sky. Following that, he landed heavily on the ground. Ah Xian! Yiqing Luo hurriedly hugged Dmo Xian's waist, preventing him from attacking again. Enough! The both of you are enough! The sand which flew up from the ground was blown away by the hurricane. Zhu Wu Xin fell onto the ground, and his body actually dragged out an obvious trace on the ground. But he was still expressionless, as though he couldn't feel the pain in his body. There wasn't any feeling at all. Yiqing Luo saw it clearly. Zhu Wu Xin's red wide sleeves had already been torn apart. Bright red blood kept gushing out, fusing with his crimson, luxurious robe. If one didn't look closely, one wouldn't be able to tell that he was injured. A trace of blood spilled out from the corner of Zhu Wu Xin's mouth. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly felt an indescribable dull pain. Her brows creased as her little hand pressed against her chest. She couldn't understand where this feeling came from. Feeling heartache? DMO, Xian, squinted his peach blossom eyes as he stared at Yiqing Luo's dazed face as he asked in an unhappy tone. Yiqing Luo shook her head as she looked at Zhu Wuxian's direction and sighed softly. He just recognized the wrong person and is too stubborn. No matter what, he saved me several times, so I owe him a few favors. Even if it was because he recognized the wrong person, which was why Zhu Wuxian saved her. But saving her was the truth. His stubbornness was merely because he loved that person too much, the person he was looking for. Lil Luo, you're my woman. Regardless of life or death, you're mine. DMO Xian locked her lower jaw as his brows were filled with solemnity. No matter if he denies that he's the wrong person, you better remember this sentence. Looking at the jealous DMO Xian, childishly, Yiqing Luo's brows overflowed with a trace of tenderness. She put her arms around his neck and nodded hard. I'm yours, and only you. It didn't matter if Zhu Wuxin denied that he was the wrong person. No matter what happened between her and Zhu Wuxin, the current her only had DMO Xian in her heart. This would never change. Not good. There's movement. All of a sudden, the Ghost Marshal's vigilant voice rang out. Gui Wu and Zhou Mo quickly shielded the other students and instructors behind them. The fire nest is about to collapse. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone felt the ground beneath their feet shake. DMO Xian hugged Yiqing Luo tightly as his brows creased as he looked at the source of the disturbance. In the depths of the lair, there was no end to it. Suddenly, an extremely dazzling ray of light shot out, like the light of fire. In an instant, the entire fire nest was illuminated. Wherever the dazzling light went, everything in its surroundings would be hidden in the light. Xian, this. What's going on? Yiqing Luo looked at that ray of light in shock, which was already flying towards them. Her gaze looked towards Zhu Wuxian's direction. Young Master Zhu is still over there. Xian, let's bring him along and leave. Her words suddenly came to a halt. Wasn't Zhu Wuxian injured by DMO Xian earlier? Why did he disappear? In Zhu Wuxian's direction, there was only a pool of blood, and Zhu Wuxian's figure was nowhere to be seen. DMO Xian's eyes sunk as he instantly reacted. Lil Luo, hug me tightly. But just as he finished his words, Chapter 1494. Following that, it was an earth-shattering brilliance as it shrouded over. Before Yiqing Luo could react, a strong suction force, like a tornado, sucked her in forcefully. The next moment, Yiqing Luo felt her vision turning black as she fainted. When Yiqing Luo regained consciousness, she discovered that she was in a huge karst cave. There were blazing flames in all directions. The surroundings were filled with lava, rolling and flowing. The place where she laid was also a path created by the flames. What made Yiqing Luo astonished was, she totally didn't feel any heat at all, as though these flames were all illusory. But Yiqing Luo was clear, these were absolutely not illusory flames. But they really existed. Surveying the surroundings, this was a passageway constructed by the flames. As far as the eye could see, it was all flames. What was this place? Where were DMO Xian and the rest? Numerous questions kept darting around in her mind. Last Luo, this is the underground depths of the blazing cavern. Old Man Song voiced out in time, clearing Yiqing Luo's doubts. The underground depths of the blazing cavern? Why would she suddenly be in such a place? Where were Xian and the rest? Have you forgotten? There's a rumor regarding the blazing cavern. Old Man Song reminded. Rumor? Is it the rumor that there's a divine object descending into the blazing cavern? The Overlord and Zhu Wuxian had just fought. The power was too huge, causing the blazing cavern to activate its self-protection enchantment, sucking all of you into the underground depths of the blazing cavern, which is also the blazing cavern's root vein. Yi Qing Luo looked around in astonishment. This is the blazing cavern's root vein? What kind of self-protection enchantment is this? A place's root vein was equivalent to a person's Achilles heel. If Yi Qing Luo tampered with the blazing cavern's root vein, the entire blazing cavern would fall into destruction. You can enter, but you can't leave. Old Man Song directly dispelled Yi Qing Luo's thoughts. If you destroy the blazing cavern's root vein, all of you will die here. Let's find Ah Xian and the rest first. We'll think of a way after everyone gathers. Yi Qing Luo heard that and could only sigh softly. Deep underground of the blazing cavern's root vein. Could it be the divine object prophesied by the state preceptor of South Billow Continent? Did it descend into the world from this land of roots? After all, news of a divine object descending upon the blaze lair had spread like wildfire. However, no one had actually seen the so-called divine item. He didn't even know what a divine object was. If the imperial tutor's prophecy was true, presumably, the so-called divine object was in the land of the roots. Thinking of this, Yi Qing Luo's eyes lit up and immediately summoned Chi from the pet space. Chi, try to sense where you're being summoned from. Chi wagged its little tail and nestled in Yi Qing Luo's arms. A pair of tiger eyes looked around, unable to conceal the excitement in his eyes. Master, the feeling of summoning Chi is getting stronger and stronger. This is the place. Master, move forward. The feeling of being summoned allowed Chi to clearly sense the location of the summoning. For some reason, Chi felt a little excited. Looking at Chi's expression, Yi Qing Luo confirmed the guess in her heart. Hugging Chi, Yi Qing Luo followed Chi's instructions and walked straight ahead. He had just walked through a long passageway. Yi Qing Luo's ears twitched. Chapter 1495. Yi Qing Luo's expression congealed as a burst of vigilant, murderous intent shot out from her eyes. With a flip of her palm, the glower flame fan opened up in her hands. Bam! A loud sound was heard as Yi Qing Luo's profound qi collided with the incoming aura. Yi Qing Luo. A chilly voice was heard from the opposite side. Yi Qing Luo was stunned as she kept the glower flame fan and saw the person clearly. Zhu Wu Exin? Zhu Wu Exin's cold eyes were sealed in ice as he stared fixedly at Yi Qing Luo's face. His gaze was icy cold, like ice as it enveloped Yi Qing Luo's entire body. Yi Qing Luo frowned as she wasn't used to Zhu Wu Exin's vision. Young Master Zhu, this place is very dangerous. If you have nothing on, let's split up and find the others first. Yi Qing Luo didn't want to be in the same space as Zhu Wu Xin. This man gave her an especially strange feeling. She had a feeling that at the next moment, she would be devoured into his stomach. Zhu Wu Xin's aggressiveness towards her was too strong. Yi Qing Luo bypassed Zhu Wu Xin and was about to walk forward. However, her arm was grabbed by him. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased even tighter as she swung her hand. Let go. Yi Qing Luo, why did you forget about me? Zhu Wu Xin's voice was extremely icy cold in the midst of the flame wave. He asked without any emotions. But Yi Qing Luo could hear the tinge of pain in his words. Unknowingly, a certain part of Yi Qing Luo's heart seemed to be struck by something fiercely. Inexplicably, it softened. She didn't continue struggling as she raised her eyes and met Zhu Wu Xin's eyes. Young Master Zhu, it's not that I've forgotten about you, but in my memory, you don't appear at all. Impossible. Zhu Wu Xin's voice suddenly rose. The hand which was holding Yi Qing Luo's wrist increased in strength. Yi Qing Luo frowned in pain. Nothing is impossible. If I really remember you, why would I pretend not to know you? Zhu Wu Xin didn't reply. Only using that pair of deep cold eyes, he stared at Yi Qing Luo's face quietly. It was as if he wanted to see her face, her eyes, and her soul clearly. After a long time, he suddenly spoke. are not Yi Qing Luo at all. This sentence shocked Yi Qing Luo so much that her heart thumped. Could it be the Yi Qing Luo whom Chu Wu Xi knew was actually that weak and timid Yi Qing Luo? Was it the Yi Qing Luo from before she had crossed over? No, impossible. She was not Yi Qing Luo, but it was indeed Yi Qing Luo. Everything in this body had already fused with her. There was definitely no Zhu Wuxin in his memories. She came to this continent. He had already completely regarded himself as a citizen of this continent. And she was Yi Qing Luo. This was a fact that could not be erased. Yi Qing Luo's eyes flickered slightly. Soon after, he calmed his mind and revealed a solemn expression as he said in a deep voice, "I don't know why you insist that I am the person you are looking for, but I want to say that you have definitely found the wrong person." After a pause, she continued, "If the person you're looking for finds out that you found the wrong person, he'll definitely be very upset." The grip on his wrist gradually loosened. Yi Qing Luo took the opportunity to retract her hand. She took a look at Zhu Wu Xian, who was still in deep thoughts, not wanting to say another word to him. She walked past him and continued walking forward. "Aren't you afraid that I'll kill those companions of yours when I see them?" Behind her, Zhu Wu Xian's icy cold voice was heard. Chapter 1496. What do you mean? Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed with a cold glint. Chu Wuxin laughed softly. "I am a heartless person. If not for you, I would not have appeared here." Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled. This should be the first time Zhu Wuxin had spoken words of love, although it was still emotionless. But that laughter was an extremely rare expression on Zhu Wuxin's face. But Zhu Wu Xian's next sentence made Yi Qing Luo's heart palpitate inexplicably, as it was forcefully wiped out. He said, "I said, if you're not her, I will kill you." Then he added, "So if I see them, I will kill them too." Yi Qing Luo's eyes grew colder and colder. She turned around and returned to Chu Wuxin's side. "So, what exactly do you want to do?" "If you look at me, you can stop me from killing the others," Zhu Wuxin replied calmly. Yi Qing Luo's slender fingers clenched tightly. The expression on his face twitched and changed a little. "Good. Very good. Wasn't it just because she couldn't beat him now? Fine." She admitted defeat. Yi Qing Luo took a deep breath and calmed her emotions. "Zhu Wuxin, you better not touch my companion." After saying that, she turned around and walked straight ahead. Chu Wuxin gave her a deep look. Perhaps even he himself did not know. The expression on his face right now was no longer cold and emotionless. What replaced it was a doting look and a face full of tenderness. The two of them walked in the long passage for about an hour. Zhu Wuxin followed behind him. Yi Qing Luo naturally couldn't let Qi lead the way to the direction of the summoning. She couldn't tell whether Zhu Wuxin was a friend or foe at the moment, and she believed it. Once Zhu Wuxin confirmed that she really wasn't the person he was looking for, he wouldn't be as easy to talk to as he was now. The thing that was summoning Qi. She could not give it to anyone else. As a result, the two of them circled around the passageways that extended in all directions. Along the way, he did not see a single person. Could it be Gui Wu and the few people from Devil Class were not sucked into the root vein? Then, where was Mo Xian? She remembered the moment when the root vein land was opened. Someone hugged her tightly until the suction force knocked her unconscious. The person who was hugging her was not Mo Xian. Yi Qing Luo's mind suddenly cleared up as her eyes were like torches as she stared straight at Zhu Wu Xian. "Don't you know that the brilliance in the blazing flame nest is the brilliance which activated the land of the root veins? Otherwise, how could Zhu Wuxin have appeared at the last moment? Forcefully separate her from Mo Xian?" Zhu Wuxin remained silent. In other words, it was a silent agreement. Since he knew, why did he stay in a flame lair and get sucked into the root vein together with her? "I want to be alone with you." As though he had seen through Yi Qing Luo's thoughts, Zhu Wu Xian, who had remained silent for a long time, suddenly opened his mouth. The minute he opened his mouth, Yiqing Luo felt a chill run down her spine. Chu Wuxin's words of love, it really didn't match the style. She accepted her incompetence. I want you to remember me, Zhu Wuxin continued. More importantly, he wanted to confirm something for himself. Zhu Wuxian's eyes flashed slightly. Yiqing Luo's thoughts weren't on Zhu Wuxian, and she didn't notice the glint in Zhu Wuxian's eyes. She rubbed her forehead with a headache. Under the current situation, she could no longer continue to deny that she wasn't the person Zhu Wuxian was looking for. Zhu Wuxian, this lunatic. Chapter 1497. Master, if this goes on, how are we going to get to the place where Qi was summoned? Qi squirmed in Yiqing Luo's arms. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes and stared at Qi, replying in her heart. We can only find the others first. It was a very simple matter for her to get rid of Zhu Wuxin. However, if Zhu Wuxin encountered Long Yunjian's trio, he definitely wouldn't be Zhu Wuxin's match. She also tried to contact Kitty Li, but no matter how she called out to Kitty Li, he couldn't get a response from Kitty Li. She and Kitty Li had already signed a life and death contract. The reason why he was unable to contact Kitty Li, otherwise the land of the root vein had blocked her connection with Kitty Li, otherwise under the protection of Zhou Mo and Gue Wu, Kitty Li had not been sucked into the root vein. If it was the latter, that also meant that it was very likely that Long Yunjian and the other two had not entered the root vein. However, she had no way of confirming that the three of them had not entered the root vein. He still couldn't act alone. Do you hate being with me that much? Zhu Wuxian looked at Yiqing Luo's back as his voice was filled with pain. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips. Before he could think of what to say, her wrist suddenly tightened. His whole body was tightly gripped by a strong force. Her body was suddenly pressed against a wall of fire. The boiling flames continued to burn. But when Yiqing Luo's back was pressed against the wall, she didn't feel any burning sensation at all. Zhu Wuxian's strength increased as he forcefully pulled Yiqing Luo into his embrace. What entered his nose was Zhu Wuxin's unique plum fragrance. His chest was different from Mo Xian's generous warmth, but it was also extremely tough. His arms were tightly wrapped around her delicate body. His action of hugging a woman was very unfamiliar. It was obvious that this was the first time he had done such a thing to a woman. Yiqing Luo, you belong to me, belong to me. Zhu Wuxin stared at her face, then suddenly bent down and kissed her forcefully. You once said that you would be my bride. I clearly met you first. Why did you forget about me before I found you? His kiss fell on her urgently. Yiqing Luo was anxious and immediately turned her head away. His warm lips landed on her face. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed with a cold glint. Other than Mo Xian, no matter who it was, this kind of touch was hard for her to accept. She forcefully pushed Chu Wuxian away and shouted sternly, Chu Wuxian, let me go. Otherwise, I won't be polite to you. I will make you remember me in my own way. However, Zhu Wuxin wrapped his arms even tighter around her. It was as if he wanted to knead her into his body. His strength was strong and domineering. Yiqing Luo's strength was totally unable to struggle free from Zhu Wuxian. At the next instance, Zhu Wuxian's hand had already circled around Yiqing Luo's wrist. His broad palm was extremely powerful. Yiqing Luo's brows creased as the cold glint in her eyes started to seep out murderous intent. Zhu Wuxian, I'm warning you, if you don't let me go, I'll kill you right now. As soon as he finished speaking, her wrist was pinned to the wall by Zhu Wuxin. His hand tore open the sleeve of her gown. The academy uniform, which had already been dyed red with blood, was torn to shreds with a tearing sound. Half of Yiqing Luo's arm was revealed. On her fair wrist, under the intense flame, there was an extremely obvious cherry blossom pattern. Pieces of cherry blossom petals were imprinted on her arm, like a cherry blossom bracelet. Yiqing Luo's heart jumped. She instinctively wanted to retract her hand, Zhu Wu Xian discovered the existence of the Azure Dew Bracelet. Chapter 1498. Yiqing Luo's hand retracted backwards. Zhu Wu Xian's grip tightened. That long, slender fingers gently covered that circle of cherry blossom pattern. That pair of icy cold eyes, actually at this moment, like a sacred lotus melting on the snow mountain, and mixed with a trace of gentleness. Gentleness. These two words had nothing to do with Chu Wuxin. But at this moment, it really appeared on Zhu Wu Xian's face. Towards this, Yiqing Luo only had one feeling. It was too freaking horrifying. Zhu Wu Xian's gaze didn't seem like he was looking at a god relic, but looking at something that had existed in his memory for a long time. That kind of deep affection, not waiting for Yiqing Luo to think of how to deal with Zhu Wu Xian. Then she saw a pair of eyes filled with tenderness and affection looking at her. It's indeed you. It's you. Zhu Wu Xian's face surfaced a smile as his eyes fixed on her. This birthmark, other than you, who else has it? Birthmark? Yiqing Luo shot a glance at the cherry blossom pattern on the Azure Dew Bracelet. Zhu Wu Xian treated it as her birthmark? What did he mean by that? This was obviously the mark of the Azure Dew Bracelet. In this world, she should be the only one who had this kind of cherry blossom pattern, right? In this era, cherry blossom seemed to be an extremely rare flower. Most of them had never even seen it before. And the meaning behind Zhu Wu Xian's words was obviously to say that the cherry blossom pattern, which he had seen before, was not intentionally drawn by a lady to look good, but a birthmark imprinted on the skin. Which meant to say, Zhu Wu Xian didn't recognize the wrong person. She really was the person Zhu Wu Xian was looking for. But why was there no memory of Zhu Wu Xian at all in her memories? You're mine. The smile on Zhu Wu Xian's face gradually turned a little stubborn. He muttered to himself as he hugged Yiqing Luo tightly in his arms. After a few investigations and a few tests, Wang Chong had no idea what was going on. He finally confirmed that Yiqing Luo was the girl whom he knew that year. At this moment, after he saw that unique birthmark on Yiqing Luo's wrist, he was even more certain. She was indeed the Yiqing Luo whom he was looking for. The Yiqing Luo whom he had promised to marry as his wife. Yiqing Luo's entire body was hurting from his hug as she struggled with all her might and even used her profound qi to attack, but she was unable to struggle free from Zhu Wu Xian, who seemed to have fallen into a demonic barrier. She listened to Zhu Wuxin repeat the words "you are mine" over and over again. Yiqing Luo's heart shuddered for no reason. Why do I feel like such a Zhu Wuxin caused her heart to palpitate? Let me go. Zhu Wuxin. Her struggle made Zhu Wu Xian hug her even more tightly. Yiqing Luo, I'm here to keep my promise. After we leave this place, we'll get married. Marriage. Yiqing Luo was completely stunned. Zhu Wu Xian, are you King sick? Who wants to marry you? Let me go. His free hand immediately took out the glowing flame fan. She unfurled her glowing flame fan, and 2 silver threads shot out from it, sinking straight into Zhu Wuxin's shoulder. Let go. She snapped a warning. However, Zhu Wu Xian only gave a dull moan, as he had no intention of letting go of Yiqing Luo. He hugged her tightly, so tightly that Yiqing Luo had no way to make any large-scale movements. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes were illuminated by the flames as it sparkled. Looking at Zhu Wu Xian, who had no intention of letting go, she clenched her teeth as she activated the glowing flame fan's silver threads, sinking deeper into Zhu Wu Xian's body. Chapter 1499. I won't let go. I won't let go again. Zhu Wu Xian's voice was actually trembling slightly. Trembling? Even a person like Zhu Wuxin would tremble. Yiqing Luo's fingers, which were gripping the glower flame fan, loosened. Why was he so stubborn? Even if he was pierced by her silver threads, he was unwilling to let go of her. what had happened between them in the past. As a result, Zhu Wuxin's obsession with her had already penetrated deep into his bones. Yi Qing Luo, you are destined to be mine. This is the promise we made. Suddenly, Zhu Wuxian's gaze deeply locked onto Yi Qing Luo's face. Let's get married. His eyes were clear. It was extremely clear. It didn't contain any impurities. He wanted to marry her. That was his only thought at this moment. This kind of gaze made Yi Qing Luo's heart feel slightly cold. Impossible. She rejected him without any hesitation as her charming eyes were suffused with a cold glint. Zhu Wuxian, no matter what we had in the past, it will only be in the past. The person I love is only DMO Xian. The person I choose will only be DMO Xian. She was DMO Xian's woman. She loved DMO Xian deeply. No matter what happened in the past, the only person she loved and wanted to marry was only DMO Xian. Perhaps it was the mention of the name DMO Xian. Zhu Wuxin's body gradually stiffened. He slowly loosened his grip on Yi Qing Luo as he pulled apart the distance between them. Yi Qing Luo was delighted, thinking that he had regained his senses. At the next instant, Zhu Wuxian's hand grabbed onto Yi Qing Luo's neck. His slender fingers clasped tightly around her neck. His handsome face once again returned to its frozen expression. DMO Xian? A cold voice came out from Zhu Wuxian's mouth. As he spoke, his fingers gradually tightened. Yi Qing Luo suddenly felt a suffocating feeling. She reached out and grabbed Zhu Wuxin's wrist, struggling with all her might. You belong to me. You can only be mine. Zhu Wuxin narrowed his eyes, killing intent faintly flashing in them. If you can't keep your promise to me, then I'll use destruction to end everything. The tightness on Yi Qing Luo's neck made her even more dizzy. Her hand slid down from Zhu Wuxin's arm. Damn it! Zhu Wuxin really wanted to kill her. This lunatic. Did anyone die with her? Yi Qing Luo tried her best to adjust the profound qi in her body, trying to suppress Zhu Wuxian. She did not want to die with Zhu Wuxian like this. The brothers were still waiting for her. Xian was still waiting for her. Thinking of this, Yi Qing Luo worked hard to concentrate her mind, mobilizing the profound qi in her profound jade heart and communicating with Qi. As long as he caught Zhu Wuxin off guard, Qi launched an attack. He would definitely be able to restrain Zhu Wuxin for a while. However, when Yi Qing Luo finally mobilized her profound jade heart and spread it over her entire body, relieving the suffocating feeling at her neck, just as she was about to counterattack, he suddenly felt a dull pain in his heart. Her vision went white. A blurry image suddenly leaped into his mind. That was the 10-year-old little Qing Luo. After a round of beatings by Yi Qing Ling and Yi Qing Qing, she was sick and weak, nesting in the abandoned courtyard full of cobwebs. It was already the middle of winter. Little Qing Luo was only wearing a thin robe, and it was extremely worn out, stained with fresh blood. In the room, there was only a wooden bed and a piece of worn-out, smelly, thin blanket. She sprawled on the bed, and every breath she took would affect the wounds on her body, making her so painful that she couldn't help but draw in a breath of cold air. The cold wind blew in from the broken door and window. Chapter 1500. Her wound was getting more and more painful under the cold wind. Due to hunger, his stomach was growling. Xiao Qing Luo thought that she would have to look for her mother tonight. Just as she was thinking about it, suddenly Xiao Qing Luo heard a heavy object landing on the ground, as though something had rolled in. Xiao Qing Luo got a shock. No, don't hit me, don't. She thought it was Yi Qing Qian and the rest who came to look for her again. Xiao Qing Luo curled up and shivered. However, after a long while, the room was quiet, and no one responded. In the howling cold wind, Xiao Qing Luo heard an obvious breathing sound that was not in sync with her own. That sound was getting heavier and heavier. Xiao Qing Luo clutched the smelly quilt in fear. Little Ziling went to look for something to eat for her. She was the only one in the entire abandoned courtyard. Who could it be that came to her abandoned courtyard? After a moment of silence, Xiaoqing Luo didn't hear any footsteps. Only that heavy breathing sound could be heard. Who is it? She opened her mouth carefully with a trembling voice. No one answered her, and that heavy breathing sound gradually became gentle. Xiaoqing Luo tightened the quilt and endured the pain on her body as she looked towards the direction of the sound. Her abandoned courtyard didn't have any supply of candles. Once night fell, the entire room would be pitch black. Xiaoqing Luo had long been used to this kind of environment. Therefore, she only took a quick glance. She saw a blurry shadow below the window. From the silhouette of the shadow, it should be a person. Why would someone appear in her courtyard? Xiaoqing Luo was filled with fear and doubts. But as a 10-year-old child, no matter how afraid she was, she couldn't resist her curiosity. Moreover, a person appeared in her room. She couldn't be indifferent. Taking a deep breath, Xiaoqing Luo wrapped the quilt and slid down from the bed. The wounds on her body were rubbed by the rough quilt, causing more pain. There was a smell of blood in the air, extremely thick. Xiaoqing Luo's body was covered with this smell of blood, but she could still feel the thicker smell of blood permeating her room. She endured the pain and walked towards the direction of the shadow. Just as she reached the window and was about to ask who the shadow was, suddenly, a cold glint flashed across his eyes. Her small body was pulled by someone and fell into the arms of a thin and weak man. A long sword was placed on her neck. Xiaoqing Luo had never seen such a battle before. Usually, when her sister and the servants bullied her, they never used weapons like swords or knives. Xiaoqing Luo froze, not daring to move recklessly. "Child," a hoarse voice sounded beside his ear, bringing with it a trace of coldness. As he spoke, he panted heavily. Xiaoqing Luo smelled that pungent blood stench from his body. "You're injured." Xiaoqing Luo's nose twitched, even more serious than my injury. The sword that was pressed against her neck loosened. Xiaoqing Luo pursed her lips as her voice was soft and soft. "Were you also bullied by brother and sister, so you hid in my courtyard? Don't be afraid, I won't hurt you." The black shadow was silent for a long time. Suddenly, he put down the long sword. "Don't move. The smell of blood on your body is very, very heavy. Let me get up. If I press on you, I will bleed even more." Xiaoqing Luo only felt that this person who was worse off than her was even more pitiful than her. Little her immediately had a protective instinct. Chapter 1501. The black shadow obeyed and released her. Little Qing Luo carefully climbed up. The pain from the wound made her mouth continuously let out hissing sounds of pain. Just as she stood up, she didn't have time to speak. She heard a burst of light outside the courtyard. A lot of shadows of torches appeared outside the door. The light from the fire shone through the open window. Little Qing Luo saw the person sitting next to her, covered in blood. It could be called a stunning face. The young Qing Luo couldn't think of any adjectives to describe it, but she knew that this face was the most beautiful face she had ever seen. It was even better looking than her brothers and sisters. It was just that the expression on this beautiful face was very scary. When they looked at him, it was as if they were frozen by ice. "Go in and search. Find the assassin for me." A familiar yet strange voice came from outside the courtyard. Little Qing Luo was startled and murmured in surprise and joy, "Father is here." But immediately after, she heard her father's voice, which was obviously full of anger. And that very good-looking person once again used his sword and pressed it against her neck. "That person is your father?" The cold voice was fierce and full of killing intent. Little Qing Luo shivered and made a strong "in" sound. The young boy's eyes slightly sunk as he stared at little Qing Luo for a long time. Looking at this little girl living in the abandoned courtyard, her clothes were messy and shabby, her body full of injuries, it was obvious that she wasn't favored in the Yi family. Even if he used her to threaten Yi Tianquang, it would be useless. "Little brother, Is father going to catch you? Little Qing Luo heard the sound of rummaging outside, and Yi Tianquang's unceasing furious roars. The young boy's cold eyes were cold as he stared at little Qing Luo's innocent face. His sharp eyes seemed to be thinking whether to kill this little girl or not. The next moment, the little girl stretched out her hand and hugged his arm tightly. "Little brother, hide here. Father definitely won't be able to find you." When she used force, the flesh wounds on her body made her grimace in pain. The young boy also noticed those wounds on her body. It was clearly so painful that tears were about to fly out, but she still insisted on supporting him to hide from Yi Tianquang. For some unknown reason, those tearful eyes softened a certain part of the youth's heart. Subconsciously, he propped himself up and followed Xiaoqing Luo toward her direction. She hid him under the plank bed. The house was filled with all kinds of broken wood and straw. No one noticed the young boy hiding inside. The voices outside the courtyard were getting closer and closer. The light from the torch was getting brighter and brighter. Xiaoqing Luo saw the obvious pool of blood under the window. She turned her head and looked at the young boy under the bed. Her clear and beautiful eyes revealed a trace of determination. She bent down and picked up the sword in the boy's hand. "What are you going to do?" The young man's eyes narrowed as he asked vigilantly. But before he could say anything, he heard Xiaoqing Luo moaning in pain. She used the long sword and cut her wrist. Immediately, he stuffed the long sword under the bed. His small body was wrapped in the smelly blanket, and he shrunk back to where the young boy had been sitting. Blood oozed out from Xiaoqing Luo's wrist. It fused with the bloodstains on the ground. She leaned against the window, her little face contorted in pain. In the bottom of the young boy's heart, he didn't know what kind of shock he had. This little girl, was she an idiot? She actually wanted to kill him, a complete stranger, just to save him. Chapter 1502. He looked at the little girl who was curled up on the ground with a face full of pain. At this moment, Zhu Wuxian's heart, which had been sealed away for a long time, was finally filled. He actually felt a trace of warmth. The cold wind rustled, and the wounds on his body ached. But he felt extremely warm. This was the first person in his life who was willing to do anything for him. Bang! With a loud bang, the dilapidated door was violently flung open. The door fell to the ground, sending up a cloud of dust. The howling cold wind blew the dried branches and straws in the house all over the floor. Cough, cough, cough. Yi Tianquang choked and violently coughed a few times. The howling cold wind could not blow away the thick smell of blood in the room. Yi Tianquang's expression immediately became grave. "It's in this room. Search." Then, a group of guards and manservants holding torches swarmed into the house. Father. Suddenly, a weak and tiny voice entered everyone's ears. Under the illumination of the fire, they saw Xiaoqing Luo wrapped in a thin blanket, trembling all over. Beneath her was a pool of blood. "What's wrong with you?" When Yi Tianquang saw the scarred Qing Luo, there wasn't a trace of fatherly love in his eyes. On the contrary, he frowned with extreme disgust. He waved his hand, signaling for the guards and servants to leave. "In any case, you're the young matriarch of the Three Springs sect. If people see you in this state, wouldn't they laugh at our Three Springs sect's incompetence?" Yi Tianquang walked forward in annoyance. He directly extended his hand and pulled little Qing Luo up from the ground. The thin quilt was stinky and tainted with the smell of blood. This caused Yi Tianquang's brows to wrinkle even tighter, and he directly flung away that piece of quilt. Little Qing Luo's frail body was revealed. She was injured all over, and the blood on her wrist was still gushing out. His entire body was freezing cold, and his wounds, big and small, were already festering. Yi Tianquang threw Xiaoqing Luo to the ground in disgust. "This room, apart from you, has anyone else entered?" "No, no." Xiaoqing Luo curled up on the ground in pain, her eyes filled with tears. She ached all over, but he didn't dare to shout half a sentence in front of Yi Tianquang. because she knew that her father hated her very much. Her sisters bullied her. If she complained to her father, the one who would be punished would be her. Useless thing, Yi Tian Kuang lightly snorted. After that, his gaze swept through the entire room, and after confirming that there were no other auras, he turned around and walked out of the room. In Yi Tian Kuang's heart, this useless, cowardly, and incompetent daughter absolutely didn't have the guts to lie to him. The noise outside the courtyard gradually subsided. Xiaoqing Luo then tried her best to shift her body as she asked softly, "Are you all right?" There was no response from under the bed. Xiaoqing Luo started to panic. Could it be that the action of pushing you to the bottom of the bed caused your wound to open up? "Little brother, wait for me, I'll go over now." Saying that, Xiaoqing Luo couldn't be bothered about her injuries as she tried her best to stand up and walk towards the direction of the little wooden bed. She walked unsteadily. With every step he took, his entire body ached. She couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. After taking a few steps, a cold voice came from under the bed. "Enough, I'm fine. Don't come any closer." His voice was somewhat hoarse, and he coughed a few times from time to time. Hearing the little youth's voice, Xiaoqing Luo finally let out a sigh of relief. "Little brother, it's good that you're all right." As she spoke, she still tried her best to move towards the bottom of the bed. Chapter 1503. The young boy's aura suddenly froze. A murderous aura burst out from his body. One hand held the long sword at the side. "Little brother, don't be afraid. This is the footsteps of my servant girl." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw a small figure limping over from the door. When he saw the door that had fallen to the ground, a trace of astonishment appeared on his pale and thin face. "Miss, are you okay?" Little Ziling rushed to Qing Luo's side, and her eyes turned red when she saw Qing Luo covered in blood. "I'm fine." Qing Luo shook her head and touched little Ziling's head. "Linger, help me lift the little brother out from under the bed. He's seriously injured." "Little brother?" Little Ziling was puzzled. When she saw the strange young boy under the bed, Ziling exclaimed in surprise. Before she could speak, Qing Luo covered her mouth tightly. Don't shout. Father just brought people to chase little brother." "Miss, what are you doing?" "The master is chasing him. You. How can you?" Little Ziling looked at the young boy under the bed and immediately persuaded her Mississippi, "Miss, if we hand him over now, the master will definitely find someone to look at your injuries." "No." Qing Luo shook her head stubbornly, and the expression on her face became serious. "I promised to help little brother, so I must help him." Knowing that she couldn't win against her miss, little Ziling had to help Qing Luo and lifted the young boy out from under the bed. After a long while, the two little girls helped the young boy to lie down on the bed. Qing Luo grabbed the thin quilt on the ground and covered the young boy. Seeing the young boy's frown, she lowered her eyes in embarrassment. "Little brother, I'm sorry, I only have this quilt. The weather is cold, and we don't have a door. Please make do with it." The young boy's frown deepened. When he saw the disappointment and guilt in Qing Luo's eyes, something seemed to tremble in his heart. Almost subconsciously, he blurted out, "What about you?" Qing Luo was startled and immediately raised a big smile. "I'm not cold, it's okay." The cold wind was bleak, and Qing Luo was also covered with wounds. The thin robe on his body could not withstand the cold at all. He was clearly shivering from the cold, and even his voice was trembling. However, she still covered him with the only blanket that could keep him warm. This little girl was really silly. The young boy stared at that smiling face without blinking. He was used to fighting openly and covertly, as well as conspiracies and plots. Little Qing Luo's innocence easily touched a certain part of the young man's heart. "You come up to the bed too," the young boy said calmly. Xiaoqing Luo's eyes widened as she shook her head vigorously. "The adults all say that there are differences between males and females. If we sleep on the same bed, we will get married in the future. You're still a child." When you grow up, you won't be able to sleep on the same bed with a man, the young boy said with rare patience. Xiaoqing Luo hesitated for a moment. Perhaps it was because it was too cold. She crawled onto the bed timidly. Miss, this is the steam bun we just got from 8th Young Master. You haven't eaten all day. Eat something before you sleep. Little Ziling limped to the bedside and carefully took out the steamed bun from her arms. The steamed bun was already cold and a little hard, but to Qing Luo, it was already very good food. Chapter 1504. Little brother, are you hungry? Little Qing Luo took the steamed bun, but didn't eat it immediately. Instead, she leaned over to the young boy and asked softly. The young boy glanced at the cold, hard steamed bun and frowned. Do you eat this every day? If he didn't hear it wrong, didn't you Tian Quang just say that this girl was the young matriarch of Three Spring Sect? A dignified young matriarch living in such a place and eating this kind of steamed bun? Little Qing Luo blinked her watery eyes and pinched a small piece of the cold, hard steamed bun and sent it to the young boy's mouth. Not every day. These are secretly left for me by little you. Sometimes I can't even eat them. The steamed bun was stained with blood from little Qing Luo's fingers. He frowned and wanted to turn his head away. But when he saw that pair of pure, beautiful eyes, his mouth opened subconsciously. The steamed bun mixed with little Qing Luo's blood entered his mouth. Seeing him eat it, little Qing Luo's face showed a big smile. Until half of the steamed bun was eaten, the young boy came back to his senses and looked away. I'm not eating anymore. Little Qing Luo didn't force him. She threw the steamed bun that had brushed past the young boy's mouth into her own mouth without any hesitation. It was just a very ordinary action, but the young boy's heart inexplicably accelerated. This feeling made him extremely helpless. This was just a 10-year-old girl. He would actually feel shy. The young boy's heart was complicated. Little Qing Luo didn't notice. She divided the remaining half of the steamed bun into half and handed it to little Ziling. You must be hungry. Let's eat together. She kept staring at her miss as she gave the steamed bun to a stranger she didn't know. Ziling's heart was actually against it. But looking at her miss feeding him so happily, little Ziling suppressed the displeasure in her heart. Her young miss was too kind. That was why she suffered all kinds of bullying in the Yi family. Looking at the half-steamed bun that little Qing Luo handed over, little Ziling endured the hunger in her stomach and shook her head. Miss, I'm not hungry. You should eat quickly. Just eat when I tell you to. Every time you say you're not hungry, your stomach is obviously growling. Little Qing Luo couldn't help but put the steamed bun into little Ziling's hand. Then, he wolfed down the rest of the steamed bun. Little Ziling retreated to another corner of the room where she slept. The thin quilt was too small, and it could only accommodate 2 of them at most. Little Qing Luo also couldn't call little Ziling to the bed, so her little body curled up beside the young boy. Gradually, Xiaoqing Luo leaned on the young man and fell into a deep sleep. In the night, the young boy's tightly shut eyes opened. He glanced sideways at the beautiful girl nestled in his arms. No matter how cold the wind was, it blew. His heart did not feel the slightest bit of coldness. On the contrary, it was a scorching heat that burned in his heart. An indescribable and unfamiliar feeling gradually sprouted from the bottom of his heart. The next day, Yi Tian Quang sent an old doctor to treat little Qing Luo's injuries. The old doctor often came to treat little Qing Luo's injuries. He didn't have much respect for this unfavored young matriarch. After he came, he didn't even check his pulse. He threw a few bags of medicinal herbs at the entrance of the courtyard and left. Anyway, this unfavored young sect master had only suffered superficial injuries from the other few young ladies. Chapter 1505. Little Ziling picked up a few packets of medicine at the door and cursed the old doctor in a low voice. But she still picked up the medicine packets like they were treasures and brought them back to the room. Little Qing Luo used cold water to clean the wounds on her body. At this moment, she was cleaning the young boy's wounds. Seeing those packets of medicine, she quickly ordered little Ling to boil the medicine. "Little brother, there's medicine. There's medicine. Your injuries can definitely be cured." Little Qing Luo carefully wiped the knife and arrow wounds on the young boy's body. "Medicine." The young boy frowned and looked at the big and small packets of medicine. "Little brother, don't worry. Those medicines are definitely for treating external injuries. I often use them, and after using them, the injuries on my body are already healed." Little Qing Luo hurriedly explained, "Little brother, these injuries on your body should also be caused by being beaten by others. They can definitely be cured." The young boy recalled the way Yi Tianquang looked at little Qing Luo last night. It was not like the way he looked at his daughter. Moreover, he obviously knew that his daughter was often bullied. Yi Tianquang did not stop him. Instead, he sent over medicinal ingredients. When little Ling brought over the medicine in a broken bowl, the young boy sniffed it. This was indeed medicine for treating external and internal injuries. And the medicine applied on his body was also used to heal wounds. He hadn't done anything to it. Looking at little Qing Luo, who was squatting beside him with shining eyes and carefully holding the medicinal soup. In the end, he did not refuse little Qing Luo's good intentions. He needed to recover his body as soon as possible. Although these medicines did not have much effect, but at least they could speed up the recovery of his body. Otherwise, once Yi Tianquang found traces of him, he would not have the strength to resist. Moreover, if he continued to stay in the shabby place, he would not freeze to death. He was afraid that his wounds would be infected and fester to death. More importantly, after he recovered, he could quickly heal little Qing Luo's injuries. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The young boy's physique was special. In addition, all the medicinal herbs were used on his body. The young boy's body had already recovered by 70 to 80%. He could leave at any time, but every time he opened his eyes and saw the girl nestled in his arms, he actually gave birth to a feeling of reluctance to leave. Didn't want to leave the little girl who brought him happiness. Don't want to lose the smile on her face. In his mind, it was like a demonic barrier, as Xiaoqing Luo's voice and her clear smile kept reverberating. "Little big brother, today's steamed buns are not hard. Have a taste." "Little big brother, your wounds are recovering really fast, much faster than mine." "Little big brother, you are so beautiful. My big sister and third sister are not even half as beautiful as you." "Little big brother," she called out to him again and again. For the first time in his life, the young boy felt extremely needed. As a result, he continued to pretend to be heavily injured, forgetting about his mission and the purpose of his appearance at the Three Springs sect, only staying by Xiaoqing Luo's side, watching her take care of herself. Listening to her words in his ear, he did not stop. All of a sudden, he wanted time to stop at this moment forever. After the third day, little Qing Luo would discover the wooden door of the dilapidated house was inexplicably repaired. Furthermore, it was fixed so securely that not even the slightest bit of cold wind could enter. The small wooden bed was also padded with a thick blanket and replaced with a wide, extremely warm quilt. Even the place where little Ling slept was built with a wooden bed. After that, they could eat hot meals every day, and there were bags of food that could be stored for a few months under the bed. Chapter 1506. What made Xiaoqing Luo most astonished was, every morning when I wake up, the wounds on her body gradually healed. The suppurated area had scabbed over. The scars also gradually faded away. She was full of doubts, but she knew that all of this must have been done by the young boy who was gradually able to get out of bed and would occasionally practice his sword in the abandoned courtyard. But she didn't dare to ask. He was afraid that the moment he opened his mouth, everything would become a dream. This dream had been going on for nearly half a month. She did not want to wake up from this dream. Yi Qing Luo. In the courtyard, the young man's icy cold voice was heard, interrupting Xiaoqing Luo's deep thoughts. Hearing his voice, Xiaoqing Luo immediately raised her head, smiling like a flower as she jogged forward. Little brother. He opened his arms and embraced the little girl. They had only known each other for half a month. However, the atmosphere between the two of them seemed to have experienced several years of feelings. The young boy could feel it clearly. The little girl in his arms occupied an extremely important position in his heart. But he had his own mission. Before the mission was completed, before he had enough power to protect this girl, he could not drag her into his world. Yiqing Luo, I'm leaving. His voice was very calm. He gently hugged the little girl's hand, but he increased his strength. Xiaoqing Luo was stunned. She knew that her little brother would eventually leave. He just didn't expect everything to happen so quickly. This was the first time that other than Ziling and Xiaoyu, he was the person who treated her the best. Wait for me here. The young man lowered his head as his cold eyes locked onto Xiaoqing Luo. Wait for me to pick you up. Xiaoqing Luo buried her head in his arms and shook her head. Her small hands circled his waist tightly. She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to see her little brother again. She did not know how much longer she could live in the Three Springs sect. He seemed to have seen through the worries in her heart. The young boy gently stroked her head. Yi Tianquang won't let you die. I will return as soon as possible. Rather than bringing little Qing Luo away now, it would be better to let her stay in the Three Springs sect. He had investigated the Three Springs sect, although Yi Tianquang loathed Xiaoqing Luo to the extreme. But he would absolutely not let Xiaoqing Luo's life be in any danger. In following him, he was unable to guarantee that he could protect Qing Luo anytime and anywhere. If they were not careful, what awaited them? It was death. That night, the young boy still left. Before he left, he carried Xiaoqing Luo as he whispered in her ear word by word. Remember my name? I'm Zhu Wu Xen. Chu Wu Xin. Xiaoqing Luo repeated his name word by word. His warm kiss landed on Xiaoqing Luo's forehead. When I return, I will marry you. Are you willing to be my bride? At this moment, Zhu Wu Xin had to admit it. He was moved by this 10-year-old girl. Her clarity, her beauty, it completely dispelled the darkness in his heart, captured everything in him. Xiaoqing Luo raised her head, looked at him, and nodded her head vigorously. I'm willing. Memories flashed in his mind. All the images stopped at the last scene. Her smile was like a flower, and her eyes were firm as she said, I do. Then it was this body, Xiaoqing Luo's memory. It was a memory that had been sealed in the depths of this body's heart for some reason. Under Zhu Wuxin's relentless attacks, this memory was released in the end. As expected, it was a relationship between the Yiqing Luo before she transmigrated, the owner of this body, and Zhu Wu Xin. So deep, hardworking. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.